All right.
Hey, hey.
And yeah, we should be live. And hello, everybody. Sorry for the massive delay, but I thought we were all on the same page, me and all my guests for this SFD stream right here. But one of them is something and forgot about the scheduling. I don't know what the fuck. The other one got called out for work, and yeah, just. But I got still got a bit of a full podcast here. I'll let everybody introduce themselves and their beliefs and channels very briefly by when I call them out by name. First guest here is ally of the channel, Don the Pleb. Say hi.
Hi, everybody. I'm here semi-often. I'm sure you all know me at least a little by now. My co-host and I, Peter, talk about the news on a regular basis, like at least 3 times a week. I put out some other videos that I'd like to hope interesting. I am apparently here to defend religion as what amounts to an atheist or agnostic close enough that you might as well call me an atheist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's kind of almost a Christian empathetic sort of agnostic, as I put in one of our Twitter group chats. But next guest is often co-host for the Strike Force news streams, Loudmouth. Yes, and we have a person that I've had on stream before and kind of sparred with, and Calm himself, SmileyP. Say hi, Smiley.
That would be me. Hello.
Yep, and it's good to have him on the show again. And of everyone else to have on the show again is longtime not arriving guest, but now back on the show finally after 2 years, Metal Minister.
Hello, hello.
Yes, it's great to have you back on, Metal Minister. It's been quite a while. And just now we have our third, or I guess fourth, sort of atheist on the stream, Mjollnir Man. Hello, Mjollnir.
Howdy.
Nice setup there. I heard that you had moved into an apartment or something of your own.
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. So anyway, I guess we'll get right on to it. What started this discussion right here? Hold on, I'm gonna rearrange some freaking tabs so I can screen share. Share screen.
That's not a bad idea. If anyone else, are we allowed to do that? If we have need for it.
Certainly, but I'll be the one that'll actually be able to click on the screens of whether or not they get shown. But what started this whole discussion is this tweet by Sarah Reese Jones that Metal Minister had shared in one of my group chats, Strike discussions, and he was all like, this deserves every bit of ratio because it seems a little bit of a ridiculous thing to complain about. So basically she tweets out, My Pillow CEO Mike Lindell says God put Trump in the White House and tells people to read the Bible while standing behind a presidential seal on government property in a clear violation of the separation of church and state, supposedly. And because I do not know exactly how to do the exact setup for high quality volume, we're going to do it the kind of trashy way where you'll be listening to my speakers to have this video played. So bear with me, folks.
I'm having issues hearing you. Is anyone else with that?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm just making sure. It sounds like it's breaking up a little bit.
You're understandable, but it's really choppy. That's basically.
Yeah.
My audio is choppy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know exactly. But you can still at least understand my words, right?
For the most part.
But yeah.
All right. That's the most important part, but I'll have to try and take a look into that, but I'm not the best computer techie. But anyway, let's listen to
prawn in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, what?
I said stop downloading prawn in the background.
There you go.
Right. But anyway, let's listen to this clip.
God gave us grace on November 8, 2016 to change the course we were on. God had been taken out of our schools and lives. A nation had turned its back on God. And I encourage you to use this time at home to get back in the Word, read our Bibles, and spend time with our families. Our president gave us so much hope where just a few short months ago, we had the best economy, the lowest unemployment, and wages going up. It was amazing. With our great president, vice president, and this administration, and all the great people in this country praying daily, We will get through this and get back to a place that's stronger and safer than ever.
Thank you. Please come on. I did not know he was going to do that, but he's a friend of mine, and I do appreciate it.
Okay, so that's the end of the clip, and I will say that there might be some things that are a little bit exaggerative, a few minute things that I might disagree with him on, but the general premise, of him saying that he would prefer that more people were Christians going back into their Bibles and whatnot, I don't think is an outright violation of church and state, but to kind of continue on with the...
He credited it to the president.
I mean, hey, here's the thing that God could do for us. You know, probably get rid of that virus that's shutting down society.
That'd be dope.
That would be...
Hey, Jesus, if you're listening to me, please do that. Do me a good one, and I might consider coming back to you. Just get rid of that fucking virus.
Yeah, atheists, agnostics send out the "if there is a God" prayer. But to give more context to the story here, Sarah Reese Jones also says further down here, and for the confused, SCOTUS already ruled on this in Engel versus Vitale. The court held that the mere promotion of religion is sufficient to establish a violation, even if that promotion is not coercive. And I almost want to call bullshit on that. I mean, maybe it is true, but there was a bit of an argument that happened in SFD, and now here we are to where I think that it's appropriate to have a full-on discussion about this. So
first and foremost, the problem with her citing that was that was in regards to a school, and the school could not start a prayer. But if one happened spontaneously, it was no big deal. If a random normal person, if someone not associated with the school started a prayer at an event held by the school, there was no problem. The school itself was just not allowed to start the prayer.
Good Lord.
So it doesn't help her case at all.
Actively moving into a U-Haul right now. Who
What's
is
that?
So, somebody is
I believe that's
packing
me.
their
I
entire
apologize.
house into a U-Haul right now, and it sounds fucking terrible.
Yeah,
don't know.
there's never been any Supreme Court ruling saying that the violation of church and state for any politician or government official to profess religion if there's no coercive action.
Yeah, I personally don't see any big issue at all with just mentioning God on a public speech. I mean, if you think that somebody is talking about it way too freaking much and not talking about other issues of substance enough, well, then there might be reason for you to be motivated enough to want to vote them out of office or something. But then again, this person is not in office. Just to premise that, folks, well, then fine. But the mere idea of somebody doing this, I don't find as really illegal. But
would this hold if they were of another religion? Perhaps if this person was Muslim or something?
Well, of course. I mean,
the
people might kind of freak out just a little bit, saying, "Oh, what you say is disagreeable," and that's fine. I mean, people can espouse their disagreements with that person making that Muslim-infused speech, but it kind of works both ways. So
would they though? I mean, Obama brought Farrakhan to the friggin' White House, and everyone who said anything about it, I mean, there's only one thing that you could possibly be. That I'm just
hold on. Now,
I don't know.
When did Obama bring Farrakhan to the White House? I don't remember that happening.
It was like fucking 8 years ago now. Didn't put him up in front of a teleprompter, mind you, but in front of a fucking microphone. But he did bring him to the White House.
I'm pretty sure that's not the case, but let me see. Lewis.
I don't know. I think the main issue that people had is because he's such a freaking hateful individual that it might as well be Donald Trump, like literally bringing a kill all blacks Nazi into the White House or something like that.
Well, I mean, it would be.
That would be awkward.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, and it would also serve more evidence to far leftists that Donald Trump, and I'm not saying that you are the type of person to do it, Smiles, by name, but other far leftists who literally think that he is a Nazi. Trump is.
Hold on, I fact checked that photograph of Obama with Farrakhan was at a Congressional Black Caucus meeting in 2005.
Where?
He had never had Farrakhan in the White House.
Where?
I looked it up.
Couldn't.
Where was the Congressional Black Caucus meeting? I mean, like, are we about to start splitting fucking hairs about.
Yeah, I
where
mean, is
he
that the
would
question?
count.
Just bringing a
President in
religious
2005.
person into the White House? I mean, he put him on TV, which is quite a difference, but it didn't sound to me like he was enforcing anything.
He wasn't, right? I mean,
No.
Yeah.
you don't have to fucking like it, but look, talking, and God knows Obama talked to lots and lots of Muslims about lots and lots of things, during which none of this was a problem.
Yeah.
Right. And
I mean, I think there's a lot more problems to be focused on than this. I think this is ridiculous.
I mean, I took
All
serious
right,
issue
well-
with a lot of Obama's praise of Islam. I remember particularly in 2012 when, after those riots over those cartoons, and Obama essentially took an apologetic tone, apologizing for a YouTube video that was offensive to the Muslim world. It genuinely pissed me the fuck off, because the Muslim world
Right.
need to grow up on this matter. People have free speech. We have a right to make fun of any figure we want, politician or religious figure. That is the essence of free speech, and no one should be taking an apologetic tone to it.
Agreed.
Let's look at this just for a second from this perspective.
Mhm.
First of all, we had a private citizen who was speaking his own opinion, perfectly covered by the First Amendment. In two regards. One, in the fact that he has every right to practice his religion without being stopped. And secondly, because it was his speech, and he has the right to free speech.
Yep.
Free speech ends in certain private institutions, but this is the government building, so it's by definition, it would be a public institution.
Exactly.
So I think I would agree with you.
Yeah. Bottom line to this whole thing is this is yet more, blue check Twitter hysteria. And whether you agree with Trump, whether you disagree with Trump, this is another example of Trump derangement syndrome. Anything and everything he does is both bad and wrong. And then you throw in on top of that a white Christian male, and you've now hit like every single check mark, for certain political ideologies. And there was no turning back after that. No matter, he could have gotten up there and espoused every single, leftist intersectional talking point on the planet. And they still would have come down on him like a load of bricks because reasons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
if
Trump has
Trump,
many issues that we should focus on. This is not one of them.
If Trump posts on Twitter, "Have a nice day," his comment section will fill up with a bunch of blue check marks saying, "Fuck you! Who are you to tell me what to do?"
Well, it was just revealed the other day. Donald Trump was apparently talking about doing universal health care, so like Medicare for all for everyone. And so now suddenly Chuck Schumer's against it.
Now, okay, I do want to say that apparently there is not a whole lot of disagreement going on this stream, but
I know, sad, right?
the next step of the disagreement in this whole political discussion right here was in the SFD chat. There was like an idea that was proposed by one of the other plausible guests that we might come on. He said that he overslept, by the way. There's a possibility he might come on, and if Loudmouth isn't able to stay long, we'll have him come in place, but I'm going to try to refrain from mentioning his name until he comes back.
But what was the point he was
important to
bringing
say?
up?
I can jump off. I'll talk to you guys later.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Later, Loudmouth.
See ya.
What was the
Alright.
point he was trying to bring up?
The other guest, who shall remain anonymous for right now, he was trying to say that there should be like an amendment to prevent, if I remember correctly, there should be like a constitutional amendment to say that people should not use like public airtime, like public sector airtime more specifically, to say really anything about religion. But even so, like a speech that was almost solely about religion, like this guy was. And so Don was kind of curious as to what the case is for that, and I am sort of curious as to what the case is for that and what are the lines that draw with that case. But since the other guest still has yet to arrive yet, so I said yet twice in the same sentence. Excuse my autistic speech impediments, everybody.
Just push through it.
But-
just push through it.
Apparently, we're
It's
drinking
whatever.
on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Since he's not here,
but-
you either want to move to something else? Is what
No,
you're
no,
saying?
no. There's something still in relation to church and state that I want to bring up, but it's not this specific issue about saying speeches behind a presidential podium.
Well, get after it, girl. Stop cock teasing. Get to the point.
Mhm.
All right. So there's a CNS News article that I had read a few years back. I cannot remember when exactly, but there was like this football coach, I think it was. He was basically just getting on his knees and praying like in the middle of a game, and the Freedom from Religion Foundation freaked out about that. And the whole mentioning of the court case that we mentioned earlier, Engel v. Vitale, you guys say that, by you guys, I primarily mean minister, say that it was primarily a ruling saying that the school and school employees cannot make,
Yes,
cannot
it was
promote
a
any
public.
prayer.
The entire point was that the school, anyone who is employed by the school, is de facto considered a government employee and was not allowed to initiate a specific religious action while performing their duties at
Sounds cut and dry.
government function.
That was unacceptable.
So they
Broke the
couldn't.
rules.
The coach was not allowed to go out and force people to come out to the middle of the football field and start praying together. He couldn't make them do that. That's why after that he said, okay, he never wouldn't say anything. He would just go now by himself and do that. And yet some of the players would still come around him anyway.
I feel like they don't need to do that in the middle of the field. I think that seems a little unnecessary.
Mm.
If you're going to
My
pray
fe-
and the idea is to talk to God, I'm sure he can hear you anywhere.
Mhm.
You know, I
Yeah,
don't think
and-
you need to do it in the middle of the field.
Yeah,
If a
So
person
what?
was to
Look,
go on, Don.
even if God can hear you wherever the hell, if you're talking, and we are, because nobody ever seems to remember this, about a coach walking out into the edge of the field, let's be honest here, no more than 5 yards into the field, taking a knee and having a prayer in the middle of halftime, what is the actual problem? Who is impeded? It's not like he walked out in the middle of the game and said, well, that's it, refs, call timeout, I need to friggin' pray right now. The game was already off, all right? Nothing was happening. He just walked out, took a knee, and took a prayer.
I mean,
And we all
here's
got
what-
ass mad about it.
And if I remember
here's-
correctly, the point behind it was it wasn't even during the game, it was after the game was over, and it was him actually making the prayer that everyone had, and thanking God because everyone had remained safe and no one had gotten hurt.
Yeah,
Here's what my thought.
They dropped that at some point and then just went after the halftime thing.
Yeah.
Here's what my thought is. I mean, if it's not interfering with the coach's own duties as a coach, well, then by all means, you should be allowed to pray. Doesn't matter where or when. Although a person can be arguing that he was technically sinning because you're not supposed to be all showy with your praying.
That's kind
But,
of what I'm getting at.
So, if I may, ask a question to the podcast here, do you guys think that ruling should be overturned or not? Engel v. Vitale. Yes, Don?
Yes.
All right. I kind of think so too. I mean, if they're not literally forcing people to pray or forcing people to be Christians or abide by this Christian tradition or that Christian tradition, well, then it's not a big deal. And if all they're doing is just banning or prohibiting, rather, employees to non-coercively pray and maybe even encourage non-coercively their students or fellow coworkers or whatever to pray, well, then I don't see the big deal there. Just refuse if you don't want to pray. And if they want to freak out at the fact that you didn't want to go ahead and pray, well, then yeah, they're being an asshole by all means. But nothing's illegal.
But I think that's why we need that law. I think it should. I think it should stay. Because I think that
it's not a law, it's a SCOTUS ruling, which is a big damn difference and one we all need to acknowledge more often.
Okay,
Yeah.
but go on.
What is the
Smiles.
difference?
SCOTUS created law from literally nothing. They made some shit up, you didn't vote on it, and you can't repeal it without amending the Constitution. By the way, this all goes straight to the line of judicial supremacy, where somehow or another, the Supreme Court rewrites the Constitution whenever they damn well feel like it. And the simple reality of that is there is nothing, not one word in the Constitution anywhere about a separation of church and state. The ruling comes from fucking nothing, and they just decided they wanted to do it.
Yeah, I actually know. I was doing a little reading on this earlier this week. The whole thing comes from a letter written by Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Very Baptists. Well, the problem is right around that same time that he writes that letter that has the separation of church and state, he then drafts a bill, which was accepted and passed as a law at the time, to have the federal government pay for Roman Catholic priests to go to certain Native American, majority Native American areas to help teach them the Bible and teach them Christianity.
Wow.
So to say that wall of
crazy.
separation is supposed to be both ways, no religion in and no state in religion, obviously is bunk when when the person who wrote those words then immediately turns around and pens the bill that sends money to Roman Catholic priests to help them spread, Christianity. While Thomas Jefferson himself was not an Orthodox Christian, he would probably be closer to something like what we might think of as like a Jehovah's Witness now. But yeah, to then turn around and say that he meant for there to be a strict, solid brick wall between the two, and neither the twain shall meet, obviously holds no water. But that's where a single judge found his basis for the entire ruling that he gave. So it was obviously he was searching, just dragging out anything he could find to try to get a ruling he wanted, and he couldn't find it in the law. So he went to a single letter from one single founder, and yet there were how many people that signed the Declaration of Independence?
So, look, but I mean, has that not served us well? I mean, obviously it sort of dissolved again anyway after the Cold War with the whole "in God we trust" thing anyway. But it seems like keeping religion out of the state puts everybody on an equal footing, which is what we want. Isn't that what land of opportunity is for? So it seems like to keep it out would be at least out of public institutions would be the right thing. And
so no, fairly obviously. No, there's, oh boy, where do you even begin? So Pennsylvania at the establishment of the state had a state religion, right? This was not a founding principle. As to whether or not it served us well, that Supreme Court ruling has gone on to grant things like, if you have the 10 Commandments sitting outside of a courthouse, we need to have a 10-year-long court case and then remove something that's been sitting there since before the founding of the country. This is evidently not related to what the founders were talking about, and yet we're doing it anyway. And we are furthermore going out of our way to absolutely destroy everything that encompasses religion, which entirely circumvents the First Amendment, because we decided at some point during the progressive era that we didn't like religion anymore and that it was bad. And then instead of actually passing the laws and getting acquiescence from those people in that land of opportunity that we're supposed to be talking about, we decided by fiat through Supreme Court judges that we're going to tell them it doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter what opportunity you're looking for. It doesn't matter how it is you would like your government to be run. You will do the progressive bullshit that we tell you, whether you like it or not. And all of that stems from the case Marbury versus Madison, where we somehow decided that the Supreme Court, instead of being a co-equal branch, was the supreme branch. This created judicial supremacy and is why we follow their stupid edicts. They gave it to themselves.
What would you have?
There's no particular reason that if, for example, Pennsylvania at the founding of the country was I don't know, they were all Dutch, so whatever thank you, Quakers. We're all running around and all of them were Quakers. There's no particular reason that every government meeting can't start with a prayer. And look, if that bothers you, then don't listen. I mean, this is the whole premise of free speech, but we completely throw it out the window the moment religion comes up. All of a sudden, it's not don't listen, it's I need to be free from your religion. And if that was anything else, any other concept, everyone and their brother would be jumping up immediately to say, no, you can't silence those people.
Yeah, I mean,
people kill in the name of God. I think that's the main issue.
You can't.
People kill in the name of communism. Does that mean we should ban anyone?
That's true.
And
any argument
in your government?
Here we go. Yeah, any argument that can be turned around on you is not a good argument.
People kill in the name of capitalism. People kill in the name of people kill in the name of everything. But people like they will I feel like that there is perhaps, and this is my opinion, so maybe I could be, you know, we could be discussed about it, but I feel like religion is so, it's tied
Once
so.
you're done with your statement there, Smells, there's a couple things I want to bring up. Go on, though.
Okay. I think that people could use, I think it all comes to authoritarianism, which we all, I imagine, are not particularly for. And so
Pretty much.
I feel like religion gives people a very good excuse, at least in their minds, to kind of do whatever they want in order to control others. And that's why we kind of want to keep it out of the state.
Yeah, can I address that really quick before
Yeah.
you jump in, Darkon? Yeah, the problem with that is that originally all of the states, before we had states, when they were colonies still, had state religions. It was through Christianity especially that they said, no, we don't want to do that because we don't like that. It's too authoritarian.
Exactly.
I think the main thing. Okay, the couple things I want to bring up, if I can get a word in edgewise.
Sorry.
How I think
Your
that
podcast.
freedom from religion should be defined as is you don't have to listen to that religious speech if you don't want to, and of course nobody is to enforce a religion upon you. But freedom religion, I don't think should be defined as no, they cannot speak even in a public sector area their religion, about their religion and so forth. And second thing that I kind of wanted to bring up, I don't know if this was like a part of an earlier point that you're bringing up, Minister, as to what J.C. Armitage is trying to address, but they ask anyways, because I do not know what they are. To be fair, do you really want the state to give stolen money to religious missionaries? And if I may say for myself, I don't think missionaries should be taxpayer funded. I think they are fair enough with their private donations. But what do you have to say to that, Minister?
Well, at the time, that wasn't an issue because at that time, we did not have things like income tax. The only taxes that we took were on imports. And we were taxing the people importing things into the country. And they had a severe shortage of cash. And that was back when they knew, hey, here's an idea. Let's not spend more money than we actually have. So it wasn't quite the same thing as what we have today. Actually, it wasn't the same thing by a long stretch. And to your point, and I think everybody's point here is in terms of being more libertarian about this, let's flip the script just for a second. Gay pride parades. Let's say now for a second we say, well, I don't want to see that, so therefore you can't do it. Everyone and their brother would have a fit and lose their minds over it. How dare you stop that from happening? That's their free speech. To which I actually would agree. That is their right to free speech to have their parades if they want to.
Aside from some questionable things of having kids too close to.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, public nudity is a problem. You can't do that.
Yeah,
You can't do that in the name of religion. You can't do that in the name of sexuality.
Well, look, so the premise here isn't that you get to ignore all other laws just because you have a religion. The premise here is that religion is not somehow separate from everything else.
It also shouldn't
have its
define laws. Is the other thing.
Maybe it shouldn't, but it will, at least
that's the
in a
idea.
morality-based sense, right? So the idea of freedom from religion, this thing where we must extract religion from society at large, is really the problem here. This idea,
And I agree. I don't think that we should do that. I agree with you.
And therein lies the problem, though, right? Because if we have a separation of church and state, if you get up and you're I don't know, any of the progressives at all that exist anywhere, and you go, "My gay pride, woo!" then everybody cheers. But if you get up and you say, "This is a great country, thank God," well, we have a separation of church and state, and how fucking dare you? Right? And
and unfortunately, I'm sorry. Are you finished?
have at it, man.
Okay. I think that, yeah, there's going to be semantic people, and I'm not necessarily with them. And I think you can say this is a great country, thank God, if that's what you agree. But it perhaps saying that this is a great country because of God, because God defines our laws, if it goes down then perhaps we have a problem, which is why people try to nip it in the bud, which we all agree might be a little bit too much. But
Sorry.
No, I think I was kind of done with that, actually. Continue.
Sorry about that. I would just point out, though, that outside of an objective standard, you don't have anything to strictly base a law on.
That is one thing I wanted to say. I'll listen.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, what I was gonna. We're all apologizing. Thank you. So, what I was saying was, I think I wrote it down was, we don't want the religion. We don't want. At least I agree with the idea of not letting a certain religion define laws. However, I don't think that anyone would say that there's a problem with taking laws that seem like a good idea that the religion have. For instance, don't murder anybody. We agree murder is wrong. The fact that religions say don't murder doesn't mean that we should, say, okay, well, now we can murder because, we don't want religion to allow, we don't want religion to define it, but we say that religion has a good idea, so let's do it because it's a good idea and not because not because God says that's a good idea, but because we agree as humans that it's a good idea.
Okay. So you already have a problem with that, though, right? Mm-hmm. So there is no debate had in, for example, abortion that does not very quickly devolve into, but it's the religious loons, bro. Like, well, okay, even if it is the religious loons and they are all loons, can we at least talk about whether or not this is a thing that we should be doing, and whether or not this is a situation that we do agree with, and not, well, but I knew this one guy who said that you should have a rape baby, but rather like, look, there are actually a shitload of abortions in this country every year, and they are by vast majorities by choice that has nothing to do with life of the mother or rape or any of those things that are cited.
But I mean, you agreed.
Okay,
I'm sorry, if I may.
Wait,
okay, you can.
Yeah, you can finish off your statement. Then there's a couple of things that I want to say right afterwards. Go on.
Okay, I was going to say thank you. I was going to say, well, what about cosmetic surgery? It's about now. I'm going to say that abortion is not cosmetic surgery, but you allow people to, if they have the means or whatever, or perhaps getting. Let's be honest. Most abortions are because the mother feels like they can't handle the child. They're not ready yet. They don't think that they can raise them, or perhaps that the child would be a problem in their life. And I don't see how an unborn fetus is.
Who's got?
I mean,
sounds in the background.
Yeah, I don't see how. I don't see the problem with it. If we can do it safely for the mother and humanely, as in the same way as putting down a dog or some other animal, I don't see a problem with it. I think that we should allow people to wait until they're ready, or if they decide they don't want to have children and the condom broke, or they just felt like having unprotected sex because it's their right to, and they got pregnant. It happens. I believe they should still have the option to do it. And that's why I don't think religion should be allowed, because if we have if we have a reason why I'm wrong that has nothing that is scientific and empirical, then have at it.
Few things. First off, I want us to try to stay focused on religion rather than abortion.
Yeah. Okay.
And another thing is, I like as to how fiery this chat is being. I mean, it's being respectful and passionate at the same time. A whole lot better than last SFD stream. Thank you all. And
let me ruin that terribly. Metal Minister, you're a bastard faggot. God damn it.
Everybody's a bunch of douchebags, but anyway.
As long as we all know it and agree with it.
Douchebag central.
Another thing is, by the way, I keep on mistaking Smile's voice and almost thinking that is like Mjollnir Man's voice. But anyway, Mjollnir Man, I noticed that you haven't said anything. Was there something that you wanted to say?
Well, I don't know where to begin. Just the abortion thing, because
not necessarily abortion, particularly more about religion. I mean, we'll save abortion for a later time if we think we're done with the religion subject. But for right now, I want to stay on the title subject of this. And yes, I'll let you give you some time to talk here soon enough, Aspie. But go on first, Mjollnir Man. You haven't hardly got your 2 cents in.
Maybe you've misled the people by saying I'm hardline atheist, because I mean.
Oh.
It's not.
I am spiritual. I'm not an atheist. It seems
that I
actively
don't believe in God. I just don't care. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my bad. You're right. That is my bad, because I think I recall you saying in past live streams that you weren't exactly an atheist, but I thought that maybe you were one of the more passionate people for separation of church and state, one of those types of those types of people, more or less. But was there something that you wanted to say to the table to all the arguments that were brought up on religion and separation of church and state?
I could definitely see where this unknown guest possibly is saying we should probably have a law that would prohibit religious.
Unknown guest. Which unknown guest?
I don't know, the one you were referring to earlier.
Oh,
Yeah, the
okay.
anonymous.
Well, first he has to
Expressing,
come on.
that would prohibit religious expression on public airwaves. I guess I could get behind that, but I saw the speech even before the stream. I didn't really think it was doing any harm. To me, it was just kind of like gobbledygook and platitudes that kind of went nowhere. I just thought it was more of like a show, if not anything. But I guess I could see where things like that should be taken more seriously, because I mean, I'm going to be honest, that was
I'm sorry,
any
what
other
was the show?
religion, that would be not such a good thing, right? People would be in uproar.
It's fair. If we feel like that for others, then we should unfortunately keep it for that. Is what I would say.
What I wasn't following along very quickly. What were you saying was more of a show? Thought was more of a show?
Oh, that My Pillow guy's whole speech about how, basically it was the will of God to put Trump in office and
right.
all that stuff.
And
It was just this word salad.
He was kind of stating his own beliefs, and I do want to say that, by the way, he wasn't saying a prayer on the podium right there and being all braggadocious or whatever. So I don't think he was like sinning necessarily by espousing his beliefs on Trump and thinking that he's like ordained by God to be president and thank him for that and whatnot. But anyway,
I'm just curious. Who cares?
Right. I mean,
isn't that what we kind of
legally
said? None of us do.
Legally speaking, who really cares? I mean, I kind of, like I said at the beginning of the stream, I think there's some minute things that I can disagree with him on, as far as how much praise that he thinks that Trump is worthy of. But that aside, on the religion side of things, legally speaking, I don't think there's anything that he done wrong.
Well, I mean, and make no mistake, this is the thrust of what started this conversation, is that supposedly one guy who owns a pillow manufacturing company believing that Trump was ordained by God is a big damn problem and breaking the separation of church and state. If that quantity of ass mad rules your life, then the problem is not religion, it's you.
I mean, one could almost make the point. I mean, should we be banning Ted Cruz from reading Green Eggs and Ham during a filibuster?
I mean, evidently.
Well, the thing of it is, too, is
Yeah, I don't see the point of filibusters. Like, they kind of don't really do anything.
Filibusters in the olden days used to be politicians actually discussing, reading political literature of the olden days. Now it's just them getting up there just talking a bunch of nonsense for 5
as long as
hours.
they're on topic, I suppose talk. But if you're just pushing time and reading Green Eggs and Ham, I don't care who you are. They're just going to vote the way they're going to vote anyway.
He might have been a little bit ridiculous in
think it was
reading
a
Green
joke,
Eggs Ham, but should that be like prohibited? I'm not so sure about that. I would kind of lean towards no, not necessarily. But Aspie, was there anything that you wanted to say to all the arguments brought forth?
Yeah, relevant.
I've been trying to keep track of what everybody's talking about. You guys are discussing the My Pillow guy.
Yeah, the My Pillow guy who was like giving a speech. That's at least what started this conversation, anyways. Is the idea of separation of church and state, and how Sarah Reese Jones is complaining about how he goes mentioning his religion on public property during a public sector speech, and basically how he broke separation of church and state law.
Well, is he trying to implement any policy regarding his? Or is he trying to get politicians to implement a policy regarding his religion? Well, then I don't see why that could be breaking the separation between church and state. The man's obviously he was just giving his opinion. He wasn't, advocating for any sort of policy or any sort of, connection between religious institutions and policymakers. He was just giving his opinion up on stage.
That's kind of the thing that kind of started this conversation right here. It just kind of boggles my mind as to how anybody could think that this is a big enough issue to think that either A, it is illegal, or B, it should be illegal, which is kind of why that I wanted the anonymous guest to get on the stream to explain his position. I mean, he wasn't even advocating for any authoritarian, like religion-infused authoritarian policies. He was just saying, "Oh, thank you God for Trump, and I think that more people should be Christians." He wasn't even saying we should like put in place laws to coerce people to become Christians.
Did he say that he feels like more people should be Christians?
He said that more people should be getting into their Bibles and so forth. I mean, let's be realistic.
That's a little.
I don't even
Wait. Why? Why is
Because
that the line that matters?
He's making a suggestion. He's not saying he's talking about other people. He's not talking about himself anymore.
Okay, so hold on. If I stand up in front of a government seal, and I don't think this, but for the sake of argument, let's say that I did. I stand up in front of a government seal and I say, everyone should be insert religion here. And I have no authority because shirt's not here for no reason. I'm a pleb. I am nobody. I have no power of any variety. I have now crossed a separation of church and state.
That's the name at Two Plebs Talk News. And okay, and I want to say realistic.
Why? Because this is the thrust, man.
Like, as well, let's let here, Dark. You said
let me premise. I mean, I don't think that there's anything wrong with what he said there, legally speaking or philosophically speaking, because let's be realistic, people. We want more people to be of more similar beliefs as ourselves. Like, for example, I wish that Smiles would be a capitalist and Orion Knight would get back to his libertarian roots. But realistically speaking, that might not just happen just because I say it. And this guy acknowledges that he would prefer more people are Christians, but realistically speaking, he acknowledges, or at least I think he does in his mind anyways, that people aren't just going to become Christians just because I say up here on this podium that more people should get back into their Bibles, etc.
Look, I'm sorry.
And Muslims think everybody else should be Muslim.
Exactly.
Okay,
there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, the problem is that they want to enforce it in law that you should be a Muslim. That's what the problem is.
And I feel like that's kind of what he was sort of getting at. My thing is, what is it? You guys are capitalists, right? So you understand the idea of somebody speaking on behalf of the company and the company getting mad about that because it might influence the customers. Think of religion as like a thing, and we don't necessarily want McDonald's sponsoring the government, do we? I mean, maybe I don't know how anarcho-capitalist you guys are, because in which case you might agree with that. Which I am not. I am not.
If the McDonald's Corporation wants to go ahead and voluntarily donate their own money into some government program, I don't think that there should be anything. And government program, by the way, not some candidate's campaign. Into a government program, I don't see necessarily anything wrong with that.
But do you see the CEO of McDonald's saying, hey, if thank goodness we everybody's eating burgers. Keep eating burgers, and we can keep doing this. We can fight the thing. It seemed, I don't know if those are the right words, but I hope you understand kind of what I'm getting at.
We're getting away from the point again, and this is the thing, right? So I, again, have no power, stand in front of a government seal. I am not in uniform of some variety. I am not the head of, I don't know, any institution. I am some damn guy. And I say, I think everyone in the country should be Baptist. And that means what?
Is that guy, first of all, is that what's happening? Does that guy a nobody? Did they just pick that guy out of the crowd?
He had some random company, right?
Yeah.
He makes my pillow. He is not a government official. He's just some guy.
But the government, by putting him on the podium, the government is putting their it's implicit. Even if stupid people are going to flip on the TV, see this guy behind the thing.
What?
So wait, I got a question for Smiles. You think that it's implied that the government is endorsing the thing of whoever they're putting on a podium?
I possibly
wait, that doesn't make any sense because there's like different. Well, that doesn't make any sense because there are like many different political beliefs that are like currently in office. For example, you have sock Dems like Bernie Sanders. You have conservatarian-ish conservatives like Ted Cruz, and you have hardcore libertarians like Rand Paul. Whenever the government puts them on a podium to put out a speech, does that mean that the government is endorsing explicitly their political beliefs? No, I would say not really. It's just giving
But they're
them
giving them permission to tell others what to think, and we don't want we do like whether that's convincing or not.
Are you trying to tell me that a man who that the government letting a man going up on stage and talking about his faith is a gateway towards having a state mandated religion?
Not necessarily, but I'm just saying that.
Well, I mean, it pretty well
not,
has
we
to
have
be.
like
Wait,
we don't
let's-
we don't
Seems
want
that you're making
Wait.
a similar-
Let's let the Smiles finish his point, because now he is like the sole person on his own side in this issue now.
I appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you. I mean, yeah. I mean, give me examples and we'll discuss. But right now, what it seems like is people look. I am surprised constantly by the stupidity of people, and I cannot imagine that there aren't people out there who'd watch that. And I mean, but the key is as long. I don't think that he should be telling people what to do religiously. I don't think that he should be doing that, and I think that that's why we separate it. But yes, please. I want to understand too.
Can I invert this question?
Yes, please.
If I stood on a podium in front of a government seal and I said everyone should be atheist, is that a problem?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
a religious.
Oh boy.
I believe that would be a religious suggestion.
Well,
And so what is
consistent with
freedom
your
from
belief.
religion in concept? Like, you need to be able to be in a
Don't
society
just
where
take
you
the
are
government seal
free.
away and you can say whatever you want.
Well, so you need to be able to be in public. And by the way, this is how the court cases have gone. This is not something I made up. You need to be in public and not have religion around you. Well, that is by nature choosing atheism. So if the same problem exists, then for me saying everyone should be atheist, then the same problem must exist to say that you must have freedom from religion.
All right.
I mean, isn't that the idea? In politics, just keeping religion out of politics. It's not perfect, but isn't that the idea?
Well, then the state would be atheist, and thereby you are creating the same problem by having freedom from religion as you are by saying there's religion in politics. You're
by the way,
choosing a side.
By the way, Don, I have a question from the chat that is like on screen here. Address it whenever you feel like it.
PA had a state religion. I know Massachusetts had a state religion on Congregationalist, but wasn't PA pacifist towards religion. So having a state religion doesn't mean what everybody likes to think it means. So presumably, if we had a state religion, then you wouldn't be able to have any other religion, except that every time there's been a state religion outside of the Dark Ages, what it's really meant is that everybody in the state was practicing whatever religion, and the state did lots of things to sponsor it, like build churches, like host congregations in City Hall and that sort of thing. It just doesn't work out the way that it did in, say, 1450, where religion was the government, which is what the founders were trying to avoid.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I did not want to like devolve it too much away from what you two were sparring over at that second. I just wanted to address that before losing it. But
well, they
on.
definitely went to a lot of effort to have us answer the question, so it's only fair that we do, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah.
But at least I will say, at least you're consistent, I guess, with how you think that people should not be going up on podiums. Well, on the religion side of things, anyways. I mean, I wholeheartedly disagree. I think that even a politician should get up on a public sector podium and do a public sector speech and be allowed, anyways, if they want to promote a religion. But let me ask this question: should a person not be allowed to get up on a podium and say promote communism, for example?
Let me put it this way.
Because we're talking about
I think when it
beliefs in
comes to
general.
religion, I think you should speak for yourself. I think you should be because like I said, I didn't have a problem with his speech until he was prescribing things for other people. And I think that you should say, this is what my religion offers. This is why I follow it. And then there you go.
Okay,
and
so
same thing with politics, even same thing with communism. I believe in freedom of association and working together and human beings cooperating without the necessity of the state. But I also think that capitalism, by its nature, will dissolve that. We agree on a lot as far as statelessness, libertarianism, but that's my thing. But again, I'm speaking for myself. And I want to be convinced of the best possible. What is that noise?
Sorry, those are the wind's blowing where I'm at, and there's eucalyptus trees up there. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Okay,
Just
so
wondering.
what? Damn it!
Well,
Was I gonna?
by basically what I was saying
okay,
was-
so let me clarify.
yourself.
Should nobody be saying that more people should be communists then?
Well,
As long
hold
as
on.
they
Same
say my
extension.
opinion is more people should be communists, not.
Okay, well, he was
So-
the Mike Lindell was saying that in his opinion, more people ought to be.
Did he
Christians.
make that explicitly clear? I'm sorry
No,
if that
but-
is semantic, but if you're going to be addressing the public from a government institution, I think semantics do somewhat
on.
matter, unfortunately.
Honestly, I did
hold
not
on.
think he
Can we-
explicitly had to say it, but go on, Don.
Can we stop here for a minute? What other idea has this qualification? Do we need to strip Bernie Sanders of his entire platform because he runs around talking about how he's going to forcibly transform the entire country into being social democrats? Or is it just religion that we need to kick in the dick?
I think that it should always be my opinion, and this is why. As long as he's backing it up, if he's saying, let's say his idea is we should do this, but what I'm worried about is he has no power to do so, and he's only saying we should do this because it's his opinion, which perhaps he should make more explicitly clear.
Well, so that doesn't answer the question. What other idea has this problem behind religion? Because, by the way, if there was a candidate running for office that said, I am going to make the laws of the nation the Bible, I think everyone would shit their pants sideways. But if there is a candidate who is running for office that says, I'm going to turn this country into a socially democrat country, and if its ideas must not be forcibly pushed down on the rest of the world, Bernie's got to go.
Well,
let me
I
point
mean,
out
that can be
as-
said of any politician, though. It has
Let
nothing
me
to do
point
with
out,
him.
as a Christian, if a candidate came out and said, I'm going to base everything on the Bible and institute a theocracy, I would be at the head of the line to make sure that they did not get into office.
We're skipping,
They're not
we're
called to
skipping
make
the
a
point again.
theocracy anymore. That
Well,
was
yeah.
only, that is not.
He has a
how-
question. Go.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was interrupting you. You were saying.
I was wrapping up that thought anyway. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, okay. So So your question, Don, is what else requires the prefix of "in my opinion"? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I'd say nothing. I'd say everything.
Okay, so
if you are saying, and this is my opinion, if you are saying that things need to change, then you should say, I believe things need to change for these reasons. If your reasons, the problem with religion is the reasons are because the Bible says so, which doesn't necessarily hold up to scrutiny. Whereas other ideas can be argued and held up to scrutiny and given a chance and taken a look at statistics and all that.
So that is your problem with the basis of the idea. It's not whether or not ideas in general can't be forced down people's throats, because we accept this every single day. Every day.
I don't like ideas being forced down people's throats. I mean, that's what advertising is. Advertising is forcing ideas down people's throats.
No, it isn't.
Like,
I don't watch ads.
No.
Doesn't mean that you. What? No, that's their idea. Their idea is to get you to change. Is to get you to buy whatever the hell that they're doing.
Yeah,
they
it's,
want
yeah,
They
it's
say this is the best.
They require me to buy in, right? This is.
I don't
getting
find
away from the topic really hard here, right? So, if the premise is that an idea cannot be forced down your throat by the government, then what other ideas do that apply to besides religion?
If an idea can't be forced down your, everything, I guess, except for laws that I'm sorry, maybe I don't quite understand the question. What's an example of something? What's a counterexample that you
have? What are they called?
Well,
Monopolies.
Okay.
We have the Sherman Antitrust Act. There is no evidence of any variety that monopolies exist in the way that the Sherman Antitrust Act decided they do. Even the original case is based entirely off of accusations with no evidence, which is Standard Oil, right? Furthermore, and I can't say this enough, Standard Oil was already losing market share by the time that SCOTUS broke them up. So clearly, there being no evidence that this actually happens, it's just what amounts to a religious idea of anti-capitalist policy. We should be getting rid of it. And we should be campaigning as vociferously as we are for saying there needs to be a separation of church and state.
Okay. I sounds like I agree.
So why aren't we?
I don't know. It sounds like I agree with you. Like well, what do you feel is the disagreement?
Show me the stream, besides my own. Right? Show me the stream. Show me the wide section of public discussion directly related to how a bunch of people with an idea that does not play out in reality, never has, can't be campaigning to force this idea down our throat. And I will just handily throw out socialism.
Forgive me. I'm sorry. I don't quite understand the question still. I mean, maybe that's my problem. But it's
Sure,
like,
well,
okay,
let me-
so what you're saying is well, okay, but what
you're
I'm saying,
sorry.
yeah. So you're saying, so I'm saying, what I'm saying is, well, we're all anyway. In my opinion, I believe that we should be able to discuss things without endorsing them outside of statistics. Now, sometimes people need to act and things like that, but the problem is people can perhaps control statistics, and that's the problem, I guess.
In a debate/discussion on policy and politics, you basically are endorsing a policy or way of life, etc.
But I think your reasoning is what's important, and then people should be able to choose for themselves.
Sure. And what you're saying is you, in advance, disagree with religious reasoning being based on the Bible. So that's an argument with the reasoning of the idea, not whether or not it can be jammed down our throats. The premise of there needing to be a separation of church and state is that we can't jam religion down people's throats. And yet we do it with other ideas all the time. And nobody cares. It is only religion.
Well, then maybe that's a problem.
Sectioned off.
So, but you think socialism should be sectioned off too?
Nope.
No, I'm saying that if this is the standard, then the standard needs to apply to all, and it doesn't. The standard, as it stands, only exists for religion and literally nothing else.
Well, isn't that a free speech issue? Is that what you're getting at?
It is for religion, not anybody else.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let me think about that. I mean,
this is kind of the question that what Don is saying right now is kind of the same thing in relation to the question I was asking earlier. If people cannot go up on podiums and say that more people should be Christians, does that mean that nobody should get up on a podium and say that more people should be communists or social democrats, socialists, or leftists in general?
Right. And that's why Bernie's got to go.
According to this logic, apparently.
He's not going to be going very far, much further anyway.
Right, but that's aside the point. Go ahead, Aspie.
I remember that idea that in schools they're allowed to force certain ideas down our throats, yet they're not allowed to. Although in schools you do have to sign waivers to learn about certain things. Like I remember when I was in high school, when I was in health class, we had to sign a waiver to our parents so they can allow the teacher so that the teacher was allowed to teach us about anal sex and stuff like that.
Is it not a good thing to learn though?
Anal sex, that's necessary for life.
Well,
I mean, people are going to engage in it. I'd rather learn about it.
So
I think everything should be learned about. I think religion should be taught in school alongside others. It shouldn't be taught as fact necessarily, but I think it should be taught as if you're interested in learning about this, I think everybody should learn about whatever they want.
Here in Indiana, all religions were taught in tandem with our geography class. That's how they did it.
I find that. A variety, I'm sure, but there's hundreds of thousands of religions.
We'll just say all religions with a massive outreach around.
Well, I will premise that I do somewhat agree with SmileyP, and that I would probably put that into policy if I was a local politician of some sort. But in the ultimatum of things, I think that the locality should determine what curriculum should be done with their public schools. And this is kind of how we'll segue into Peter Young, the second question that we're going to address. He asks, if we can't force ideas down people's throats, does that mean we have to dissolve public schools? And
Yes.
All right, so Don, okay, and JC Armitage later on. I'm just going to refer you to as she, JC, because you keep on using effeminate profile pics.
version of Black Widow.
Call them Jay. JC.
Well, whatever. Oh god, I'm not going to be making up that pronoun, dude.
Hey,
But
by
anyway,
the way,
she says that we should dissolve. Wait.
They is what I would use.
She
ambiguous.
says we should dissolve public schools. They're nothing but a blight to society, and I think that ultimately we're all generally libertarian, or at least, and I think me and Don are on the same page that the libertarian ideal would be the dissolving of public schools, and there would be nothing but private schools and homeschooling done.
Well,
and
I would imagine
and the private schools would determine what their curriculum is. But since this is a big fat if we are to keep public schools, should the localities determine what curriculum it is, even for like a more openness on education of religion? And apparently that's something that's not.
Hey, I was going to give you
Aspie.
devil's advocate to the getting rid of public education. One of my teachers told me in high school that if we got rid of public education, all the best teachers would all be hired by higher income private schools, while all the bad teachers would be in the poor schools. That
sounds like what
that's one
happens now.
argument.
I feel like the argument. I think all schools should be available to everybody. I think that there should be everybody should have the chance to learn as in the best possible circumstances. I think we should give them.
I guess my question of it is, if we eradicate a public school system, I mean, what type of standard is there going to be? I mean,
it seems kind of
one area is going to learn something totally different. I
maybe
mean,
at the
we
best
still
level,
have
yeah.
that right now because states decide their own
exactly.
curriculum. I
All right, now
we moved to my high school from Washington State, and half of their credits didn't even apply in the state of Indiana.
I don't know. I
Half
guess
of the
this is.
schools.
I think private schools are the problem, not
Wait,
public
I
schools.
guess that's kind of how we'll segue into the next subject, more or less, because we were talking about separation of church and state.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, unless there was something more on separation of church and state specifically that you guys wanted to address. I think we should be talking about public versus private schooling and which is better and how we should handle the ownership of schools.
I mean, it should be all public. That's my opinion.
Why?
I mean, it's
Right,
because private schools.
He's a token. He's the token communist.
I'm the
right
leftist. Now. I mean, I'm going to take the left opinion.
Mjollnir Man is.
I'm a libertarian leftist, but I'm not. I'm still a leftist.
Doesn't exist.
Okay.
Libertarian rightism doesn't exist.
Oh God, here we go.
Libertarian left.
Brother, here we go.
But
anyway, Mjollnir Man. Mjollnir Man is the center leftist himself because you're not completely alone. But go on, Aspie.
I was gonna say left libertarian, so your Molotov is going to change society, huh?
If that's what's necessary. I suppose it might be better than recreational nukes, though.
child waves and
not as effective.
Yeah,
So,
lawn darts.
Can we get to the point then? So why
let's get to the
all
point.
schools be public?
Yeah, let's get to the point. Enough joking around.
Yeah, I think that private education takes away from the public education. It makes it like he said, it takes all the fun. They put all the money in it. They get all the resources. All they do is cocaine anyway. The students, they should really just.
That's reasonable.
Put those Yeah, no, obviously I'm exaggerating, but
Black
it's
kids.
it divides people unnecessarily based on the wealth of their parents, and they get better resources, but they don't necessarily use them. And the lower income students have much worse opportunity. They have much fewer opportunities. They don't get the proper resources. They should. I don't think education should be necessarily required. I think it should be required for maybe up to middle school or something like that. But I think that people should voluntarily go to school and that they should be public and have the best resources available.
Here's what I think. I actually think that most public schools have plenty of resources. They just have really bad management of it. Because if you go to public school systems in the inner cities, they're extremely corrupt. They're constantly misappropriating funds. Getting
little that they get.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's not like private education is much better.
Yeah, I mean, we're stopping anybody in the private sector from doing the same thing.
I'll let Don argue on this point more than anyone else because I am not that well read up on it. Although I do know of the general talking point that for the last, 30, 40 years, we have been funneling more into our public school system, and yet the education is still slightly downtrending. But go on, Don.
Yeah, it's getting progressively worse. But that said, most of, and for a long time until we started writing laws on the subject, almost all private schools outside of the preparatory schools that you go see the supremely rich enroll their kids in, but most all of the, in numerically or number of students, by any definition, almost all private schools were run on some sort of lottery for the vast majority of children in there. And the simple reality was they were producing better outcomes than public schools. Teachers' unions started to lose their shit because even kids who were failing out of public school would get in through these lotteries into private schools and suddenly become good students. It's a hell of a
What a
PR
surprise. You get the good resources, you get a better education.
Most of them are operating on less money per student than public schools.
Well, good.
Then
but they still have better resources and they're managing it better. I just don't see why we can't.
Wait. They have more resources but less money.
Better resources is what I said.
What is the better? What is the qualification of better here?
I mean, well, let's see. They have a nicer campus. They have better computers, more up-to-date technology. They have more probably educational options to learn more things, like learn more courses, like vehicles and medical things and stuff like that. What is
stopping public education from doing any of that?
I don't know. What do you guys think? Regulations or something like that? I think the problem is money in general. I think that
if the problem is money in general, then why is it that the private schools are doing better for cheaper?
I mean, perhaps they have less people to focus on.
No, their class sizes are roughly the same size. Well, to be fair, every time we expand class sizes, that gets a little bit less true. But for the vast majority of all of time, the private schools are operating with roughly 30 child class sizes. That's what most of America is running with in the world of public school. They're just getting it done better.
I mean, it just seems like they have better resources. If they're finding more efficient ways of procuring these better resources, then I think that we should apply those similar.
Define better resources.
Yeah. Like I said, they have nicer campuses. They have usually some of them have pools. They have computers that have never been shown in these in like my high school was public, but we had decent resources and our rate is our graduation rate is pretty good.
A pool makes people causes better grades.
I'm not saying that does, but I'm saying that they have better resources.
So
and they have nicer places. They have a more, like a less sort of.
Is there less restrictions on how private education can run than public education? Like, is there
parents that give a damn
the
about
same bureaucratic loops and hoops they have to jump through?
Depends on where you're talking about. In California, they've been clamping down on private schools very hard to make sure that they can't do anything other than what public schools are doing. And it turns out
it sounds like they're bringing it down rather than bringing the public schools up, which is kind of what I'm saying. Yeah, which is I disagree with. I think that that's a bad idea.
Right. However, the way that bureaucracy works is that new ideas don't get to just rise to the top. Somebody needs to come up with a good idea and then prove it out. However, the bureaucracy has to approve it being tried, right? That's the way that bureaucracy works.
It's education. It should be experimental. Then it sounds like I agree. Like experimentation is great. That's why we should have different things. And then when we find out what works, we offer it to others. And we say, in my opinion, and through statistics, this extra thing, let's not say pools, but let's say better computers or a better gym equipment, give people a better education because they have the ability to physically work their bodies, which improves their minds. And then we should offer that to others.
You can't do that with a public institution, right?
I would say,
what about an anarchistic public institution?
There's no such thing. How would you do that? You have a standardized set of information that everyone must be taught, except that you're not teaching them that because you're experimenting.
You say, all right, I'm going to experiment with this. Try it out.
I'm
a couple
lost.
Years.
Does the curriculum
if it doesn't work, we go back to normal.
One at a time. I think, Smiles, you were talking before.
I was answering his question. He said, okay, so we have the year is 2020. We have some things. We have some things that work. We put those in as the rules, and then occasionally some schools say, you know what, I'm going to try something else, and then they say, okay,
how do they actually
give them a couple years. If it works, maybe we can roll it out for others. If it doesn't work, then go back to what works and try something new. I think experimentation is excellent. I think we should constantly be experimenting.
How do you actually manage that, right? Like, so if I run a school, right, and I go, well, guess what? What we're going to do is say, I don't know, what's something ridiculous? We're going to stop teaching social justice and hope that makes kids better students, right? And that is acceptable with
first of all,
mandated curriculum.
Wait. Give a metric for better students, and then maybe we can do it. Higher grades, perhaps.
Do you see problems, right?
Because there was something that Mjollnir Man wanted to say. I think very quickly, Mjollnir Man.
Well, my issue with this proposition is basically, wouldn't it kind of just put us back in the same place where we initially started this conversation by saying, if two separate groups are using two separate experimental types of curriculum, there's no standard still.
Well, again, we have a very loose standard, and then somebody experiments. If it does well, we start implementing that into the standard. If it doesn't do well, then we say, okay, let's put this on the shelf, go back to what works. Okay. Maybe someone else will even pick it up later and try it again.
But what about that other group?
If it constantly doesn't work, then we don't need it, and we try something else.
But what happens to that other group that got shafted with their curriculum that failed?
Bam! They sue the shit out of the state. That's what happens.
I do want to say that, generally speaking, with accepted curriculum across the country, that math seems to be pretty much, and grammar for that matter, some of the less disagreeable things. So if all schools were privatized and, instead of any of them being publicized, then I think that, generally speaking, schools would teach the right way of math and grammar. I mean, there is Common Core math out there, but is that really popular? I don't even think it has like 20% approval or something like that.
No, it has no approval, and it's a great segue into the next point. We don't shelve bad ideas once they're shoved into a bureaucracy. Nobody likes Common Core. Everybody hates that crap. But a bunch of governors got together, so now that's the way.
Yeah. That's
and possibly, maybe the people who sell the books too probably have something to do with that too.
I guess this is the problem of where that kind of gets into one of the other problems, is that our public school and education is so centralized. And Common Core would be a good example of how bad an idea it is.
It should be decentralized, but it should be but the ideas should be shareable rather than private. They should be made public. It should be, hey, look, we're teaching this way and we get these results. Do you want to maybe we should give it along. Maybe you guys can try it out, and then they try that. See where it's called sharing rather than just.
What do you mean? What do you mean by shareable instead of private?
Make the curriculum public. Make it completely unsecret. Make it available to everybody to see. And the schools say, okay, they're teaching it this way, and these are the results they're getting. Let's boom.
I mean, within anarchy, there would be nothing compelling them to make their curriculum publicly for everybody to see of what it is.
Well, because we're a community, we are open, and so we share.
So curiously, school in 1985. Then that's what you're advocating.
School in you mean 1984? Is what you're trying to say?
No, 5. I avoided 1984 explicitly.
Okay.
Like the actual year.
1984.
He didn't want the George Orwell jokes to go on, but go on, Don.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that one again is Big Brother tells you what to do, and that's authoritarianism, and that's not what I'm for.
Well, right, but
be better.
Wait a minute. How is there going to be a public school system? And we're all going to exchange all of these ideas, but there's no authoritarianism. Where does this person come from that teaches this stuff? Where do the books come from? Where do the schools come from? Where did it all just magicked up out of nowhere?
Look, okay. The idea of anarcho-communism is that we all are individuals and we all have our ideas, but together we are strong. we work together to things. I can do one thing really well that can provide to the community. Others can do other things really well. I don't think we need to I don't think we should put barriers in connecting, working together. I don't think that because I need wood for my fireplace, I should have to generate a profit in order to pay the other person to do it. I think that we should all be able to have access to these things. And that includes, and then, you know, and how you make the wood, whatever, super great for firewood or whatever, should be public. There's, you know, I mean, you guys are afraid that someone's going to steal it, but the thing is, profit is not an incentive anymore. It's well-being. It's not strict. It's experimental, and whatever works, the consensus comes to is what we stick with.
I do just want to premise, by the way, to address the chat a little bit. How can you experiment with a strict regulated curriculum?
That's what I just answered.
Exactly. We're kind of arguing off of the theory if, like, the government was to not be in control of schools at all. And
I mean, the schools decide what works. The school's job is to educate people, right? So they want to be the best that they can possibly be. And if people, I mean, grades aren't even that necessarily great. I think it should the metric should be the amount of information people can.
How are you measuring that? I mean, that's literally what grades do.
I was going to say that
perhaps
originally in the Constitution there were rights that were not given to the federal government were given to the states, and one of those was schools. It was up to states to
and I go back to that.
But so look,
I think states' rights are very important.
The 10th Amendment, and it's been
I think individual rights are the most important thing that we should have.
Well, you would go a little bit further than that by your own ideal, Smiles, but I digress. And Peter Young II also says, public schools allow teachers' unions to lobby government for more money to teachers. This necessarily takes money from other programs, essentially saying the corruption within the public curriculum that causes the kids to be so stupid from public schools.
Maybe the students should decide where the money goes. Worth a try. I don't know. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Free candy and 8 hours of recess.
Again, I think school should be voluntary after what, age 10? I think that you should be. I don't think school should be mandatory.
Would it just be a better idea to like have a system like modern day Germany or Japan, where after about the age of 14, you like go to like a specific institution for like a scientific field or a trade school, because that's how they do it everywhere else, and we're all just like
that seems to work
flopping
for them.
around over here trying to figure out what curriculum.
I think we're too authoritarian. I'm sorry, what you were saying something?
I was going to say that I don't like the idea of I think one of the biggest problems in American education is that it assumes that every single kid will go to college. I don't think that is true. I do think that there has to be a separate line for kids to go to like trade, because some kids are just not built for the classroom. Some of them they're better with their hands, so that you can make a decent living while being in a trade, like, you know, plumbing, or it's livable, or septic tank cleaning. I heard septic tank cleaners actually make a lot of money.
And for God's sake, some people just don't like math. Don't make them fucking go to math. Give them 14 years, let them fucking try it. It doesn't work, and then let them do what they want. And then, goddammit, some people just don't want to go to school. Some people want fucking summer vacation for 2 years, and then they get bored and they want to go back to school. Like, it shouldn't be enforced. It should be anarchistic. It should be free. You should be allowed to go there. The institution should be available for those who want to use them, and those who want to use them will be grateful for them when they're there. And those who want to work within them, they like, think about this. You learn how to work on cars or something at school or whatever like that, and then maybe you want to teach for a little while instead of going and working in a car working guild. Maybe you really liked your teacher and they're getting old and you want to relieve them. You know, it should be volunteer. Some people like to teach. They say that those who can't teach, but some people just like to teach.
So I have some, since apparently we're just now talking anarcho-communism. So everything should be open and shareable. This is the premise, right? The firewood analogy seems like a pretty good example, right? So I cut firewood and you can just come get some.
You enjoy it. Ideally, you enjoy doing this. You do it because you like it, and you do it well because you like doing it.
I really enjoy cutting firewood for everybody else instead of going out and getting cool shit that everybody
Well,
else.
other people like making cool shit. People need firewood. You make it, but you're not the only person in the whole world who makes firewood. And you can say, "Hey, look, there's too much demand for firewood. Who wants to help?" Well, I'm not doing anything. Teach me how to cut some firewood, and you know what? It'll make me a better person, and I'll help you out.
My real question here is, why am I cutting firewood instead of getting other shit? Right?
So
like,
I guess
what's stopping you from getting other shit?
So why am I bothering to cut firewood instead of going and, I don't know,
because you enjoy it. If you don't like it, have someone else do it.
So is there anyone on Earth?
Have a machine do it if we don't want to do it.
Is there
people like
anyone
to make machines?
Wait. So
who prefers to be doing a bunch of work instead of whatever it is that their preference is for relaxation, entertainment, etc.? Anyone?
You've never met someone who doesn't just enjoy chopping wood.
Have you chopped?
I can't say
it's tough work.
I mean, I've done it.
I agree,
and it's not.
But
fun,
guess what?
no.
I would say that it's a nice stress reliever on occasion, but I don't know if I would want to do it for a way of life.
Again, a machine can do it. If we need it done, then we say, look, we need firewood. I need firewood. I'm going to start cutting it. Who else needs firewood? Let's start cutting firewood until we have enough.
So
and then until someone says, look, I have a machine that either makes fake wood like Duraflame, or I have a machine that cuts wood, and we don't have to do it. My usual analogy is actually cleaning toilets.
By the way, I wanna premise to everybody that we've kind of moved on from the title subject of the stream.
Yeah, we really have.
That being religious liberty and separation of church and state. Now we're going to just, I guess, openly talk about economics at this point. So have at it, panel.
I mean, I'm happy to go with the wherever the conversation goes. It's just that my answers tend to be questioned because I'm sort of on the left compared to everybody else.
Until the anonymous guest arrives, that is a big if, by the way.
I was going to say, this person better be amazing because they've really built up their suspense.
I think we... Okay, so...
Yeah. Jesus himself is arriving.
It's Newt Gingrich.
Yeah. That's why that I have him on the thumbnail for this stream right here, folks.
I thought this I thought we'd all end up, like discussing like anti-discrimination laws or something.
Okay, that sounds fun.
I mean, again, here's what we're discussing. It's specifically about schools, but we're discussing about whether it should be open or privatized.
Right.
And that goes to everything, which is sort of what our main disagreement is.
But like I was saying, unless the anonymous guest gets his butt in here, I think we've kind of beaten to death the whole separation of church and state issue. I don't think there's
that sounds like we have. Unless someone else has something. Comments?
Not
anybody?
really, but continue on you guys' points about economics, Dawn and Smiles.
I'm happy to continue.
I get the feeling we'll both smash our dicks into this repeatedly.
Well, I mean, we've had this kind of
everyone goes home and cries
over chat, I believe, or something like that. The pleb, Don, you're the one with the guy, the red guy with the eyes that are like this or whatever.
Yes, American flag.
I think we've talked before. I tend to kind of, again, because I'm on the outskirts of this conversation, so I don't tend to join in all of them. But I love discussing it, especially on camera, because I find it a lot easier to see the face of the person I'm discussing with, and genuinely, I want to know what's best for the world, for myself, and everybody else. And so, from my research, I've come to anarcho-communism.
Make no mistake, I am the same guy that you see in that avatar. Yeah. The beard is bigger.
Yeah.
Anyway, jokes aside, so the problem with this, right, from each according to their ability to each according to their need, is that anytime you do that, need explodes and ability decreases. Because at some point, everybody goes, you know what? I'm just working for everyone else. And there have been a few instances where this sort of thing has been tried, and it always works out like that. And this is how you end up with the enforcement of people's jobs. Yeah,
but I mean, again, those have all been authoritarian leftism. They have not been libertarian leftism. So it's kind of, and genuinely they try to, the libertarian left, the anarchists have joined in with their revolutions, but then the ones in charge, the authoritarians, usually have them killed. because they don't like it's unfortunate. It's true. It's kind of sucks.
To be honest, there's really a big divide between libertarian socialists and authoritarians.
So we don't like each other.
Like an ongoing.
I'm not a fan of Stalin. I don't like that shit. I don't like Korea. I don't like China. I don't like those people.
Well, there's a little bit of a personality difference, and maybe you guys differ when it comes to sexuality and religion, but the whole economic premise, the end goal of your economic beliefs seems to be pretty much the same. But you're saying, Don?
Well, it's similar. I don't believe in money. I think money would cause problems in anarchism.
Well, that aside, though, I said you were
that's
saying,
our
Don?
main disagreement.
So this is the problem, is that you must at some point resort to authoritarianism. Otherwise, nobody's doing anything, right? And that becomes a serious problem.
Wait. Let him.
Yeah. I'll continue.
It's fine. Carry on. Go ahead.
You say that you must resort to authoritarianism, which seems like
No. Hold on. You must right? So this is not. Look, presumably it would be fine if everybody just starved or something, and then you wouldn't need to resort to authoritarianism. But presumably that's a thing to avoid, right? And so what you end up with is some group of people who definitely won't turn into Stalin this time because reasons, and they are presumably watching over this situation where everyone is from their ability and to their need, right? And we're making sure that you're not being a capitalist in this little circumstance. You're not. So, for example, if I'm single and I'm not going out and hoarding all of the diapers or something that I then trade off to my neighbors for sexual favors or something.
Yeah, I think that some people would get together and have a problem with that. Okay. I think that perhaps the way it would work, it has not been totally tried, but the way I understand it, the way it would work is that if a council or something is needed, it would form and then it would be dissolved. Now, I guess what you're saying is that once it's formed, eventually they start eating each other and become one big council of government, and then they sort of prevent themselves from being dissolved, which is, a fear, I suppose. But it is.
Hold on, that's not a fear. People that's just an average over all of time. People get power and they don't want to let it go. I mean,
yeah, that's true. But the thing is, they wouldn't have that much power, and it wouldn't be for very long. And we would do. I mean, look, the U.S. until very recently was doing quite well because of their, the way that they had it. The need for food in the cabots exploded as people outsiders for dinner. Food shortages were addressed when people were obligated to pay for food, which regulated consumption.
Yeah, I thought that was a relevant chat to what was being talked about.
That was relevant, yeah.
It is.
Well, I mean, look, we have more than enough food. It's an issue of logistics, and we would need perhaps to put people in charge of that for a little while.
Okay, so once you put them in charge of it, what makes them walk away?
We'll address Invisible Hand a little bit later, but continue with what you two are currently talking about.
Yeah. So you're asking about regulation, it sounds like. So which we don't really like.
Presumably there's some other answer. And that's the answer that I'm looking for, right? Because look, if you just write down on paper that for example, you can't infringe on religious liberties, and then you end up with a stream, right? So the paper didn't do it. There needs to be something beyond the paper guarantee. So what is that thing once you establish that council where they go?
The monopoly of violence is what you're.
Well, not even that, right? So look, you aggregate some sort of power at some point in this council. Now, presumably, two things happen here. And let's take best case scenario. Two things happen here. One, there is a problem. Well, let's say three things because it's easier since I started with there is a problem. There is a problem. There's a creation of a council. Council solves the problem. Council now has a track record of solving problems.
Yeah.
So why would we make this council that solves problems go away?
Well, what is the problem? Is the problem that we're not getting food to everybody?
Sure.
Okay, so you said the problem is then solved. I mean, perhaps this would take a little while, but we have enough food to feed everybody. The problem is not everybody can afford it. I don't think we need 16 types of cereal. I think we need to turn that corn into food and give it to people. So and once we do that, we can start to make better food.
presumably, regardless of whatever your preference on how many types of cereal are, we have enough food. We're just not getting it to people. That's the problem the council is addressing. Does that problem ever actually go away?
It hasn't yet, even under capitalism.
Not the point. The point is we're discussing anarcho-communism, right? So the problem doesn't go away. So now you've got a permanent council that makes sure food goes somewhere.
Well, okay. I mean, does it go away? Does it not? I don't know. I mean, okay. So you're assuming it doesn't go away, right? And it's a continual problem that we need to keep solving.
What makes them give up the power that they have to make sure the food goes there? Because there's no politician. I mean, the closest anybody's got is George Washington, who at the end of 2 terms as president said, you know what? That's it. 2 was enough. I'm done. That's not a good track record for giving people power and then them surrendering it.
Here's what I sort of so here let me answer your question. Technology. I think technology has greatly improved our abilities to do these things. Some people, I'm kind of an automation guy because automation is coming in under capitalism, and it's kind of a cancer to capitalism.
Yes,
and I think that this is this is the
now
next
we're taking
step.
the Tucker Carlson approach.
And we are. All right. So Wang Gang aside, what makes
I'm not a universal income kind of guy. I don't like money.
It's the basis of Wang's point anyway.
It is,
Look, Wang Gang
He's not wrong though.
Wang Gang aside, what makes people surrender that power?
What makes people surrender that power? I mean, perhaps sortition. Limiting terms.
Okay, so we're not actually dissolving the power. We're just hoping that we can cycle enough people through there that somehow won't create the problem of an ongoing power structure.
And you know what you're asking? Yeah, you're asking a great question that is important to address, because that is it's a possibility. We have to be able to dissolve it when it's no longer necessary. I'm assuming that there is a solution that can be found. And then when it is found, once we get...
See, this is the problem, right? So some assumption, and forgive my over glibness, and it's going to be, some solution which is magical, which will violate all history of people holding power throughout all of time, does not seem like we're going to find it tomorrow. And more importantly than whether or not we're going to find it tomorrow, this is how anarcho-communism moves to authoritarian communism like that.
All right, and I guess this is kind of a relevant point to bring up. Invisible Hands chat. Finally, revolutionary Catalonia was ANCOM, and it wasn't too distinguishable from authoritarian regimes like the USSR. And I do want to say an extension of that. To be fair, Smiles, you might not be for this, but a whole lot of other Antifa people want to pretty much forcefully, take away the property of business owners and maybe even execute them and execute Nazis and so forth.
That seems unnecessary. I think people can change.
As soon as we have one of them here, we can question them mercilessly about how that's going to work and be anarchist. But this is
it's more like mob rule. It's more like mob rule communism.
There's two camps.
Still pretty authoritarian.
One just wants a diplomatic transition to stateless society, and then that other more radical camp is more like.
I can't say this enough. I don't care which magical fairy situation we're going to be talking about here. We have someone here with their own idea to defend. We should probably
and I appreciate that. I'm really liking
their idea.
Also, I want to question my beliefs as well, and you're helping me think about them by asking questions that perhaps I haven't thought of. I would think. Here's the thing. I would think if we have access to education, we have the facilities that we have. We go back to the education thing. If we make education available and the best it can be and interesting to people, then they will be. Then people will educate themselves, and they won't. Then the people under them won't allow those above them to keep their power. They'll say, "Look, you've been here too long. Like there's more of us than there are of you. We need to move out." The food thing, it's solved. We figured it out. You don't need to be in charge anymore. You done good. But it's look, you're not perfect at everything. We need other people too.
The problem that you have with that is income tax in the United States, is the Federal Bureau of Investigation, is the FDA, is the EPA. When these organizations are created, despite that there are more of the plebs, as it were, they don't overturn it. It's not about whether or not they could, because let's face it, there are, just in the United States, let's go big and say 10 million politicians. That means there's only like 300 million of us for the 10 million of them. I'm pretty sure we could smoke those bitches in a heartbeat, but we don't.
You're right. I mean, the institutions make it difficult as is. But here's the thing. All those things are doing that in the name of profit or in the name of making money for themselves. And so they go in there to make money, which is innately the problem in my view. I find that the pursuit of wealth at the expense of others is what causes the issue and the need for power.
Let's presume that's an accurate summation of the situation, whether or not I agree with it. There is.
Thank you, by the way. This is an excellent discussion.
People are attracted to positions of power who want to accumulate resources to their own, for their own benefit. Thus, even if you're going to cycle people through that council as fast as you possibly can, no one can ever be in charge for more than 6 months, which seems totally unreasonable. But
yeah, no. Well, here, let me. Yeah, here. Get to your point. Like I'm listening.
The people who are going to be attracted to that position of power are going to be the people who are attracted to the accumulation of resources for their own benefit. You have created an incentive for the people who are like that, what it is that you already don't want, to hold the thing that they want you to not have, or you want them to not have. I'm sorry.
So how about we educate the populace, we get them educated, and we say, look, these are the signs of accumulation and power, and these things maybe should be avoided.
Okay, so
and those people exist.
How do we get the populace educated?
Do we
establish a council by chance?
Perhaps we do, but a council of teachers, of people who know what it's like to educate people, and by the way, different types of things. Like, all the way from math to cars to like medical stuff.
Well, again, let's lay this out as we get all of, I don't know, the best and brightest somehow, and we accumulate them. So look, the long march through the institutions existed, right? It is very self-evident that with large positions of power, people with an agenda will inherently attempt to become a part of it. And they will try and force their ideology down whatever it is that their power permits them to have. And by simply creating this council of educators, you have created the incentive for these powerful people who have their ideas they want to shove down to get into the council. And so they are going to be doing that during that time where you educate them. The people who want to force something down your throat, presumably at minimum authoritarianism, are going to be headed there. And what they're going to be teaching people is that authoritarianism is whatever they don't like, because you have now created, right? So some metric like authoritarianism bad. And we're watching.
Well, the metric would be we're all better off when we're all better off. It's not necessarily authoritarianism bad. It's the way this works good. If we get everybody a house, some clothes, and the ability to go to school and educate themselves and have access to healthcare if necessary, then those people that you guys like, the power, the idealistic, ambitious people will have the ability to rise up, as well as many more people who would be able to do that given opportunities.
But they won't, right? Because you're still dealing with some group of people where, for example, you and I have done probably 80% of the talking in this stream. We are by far the most assertive people in this stream. There's no two ways about this. It doesn't matter that there have been, 8 people on this stream. You and I have done 80% of the talking. But there was an equal chance.
I see what you're saying.
Sure, why not?
Well, no, yeah, and we make it and we have an implicit rule that the Dark Khan, if you wanted to talk, we would let you talk, and along with everybody else.
Yeah, I guess I guess I'm just too entranced by the conversation and paying attention to it to be able to assert. I have been asserting my own logic every here and now and then, but it's mostly
it's more just like you have to kind of jab into the conversation like a dagger to get away.
You can raise your hand, and we'll make sure that you're heard. But I like
that is the point, though. You have to jab into the conversation like a dagger. And two of us are very clearly more willing to do that, even if out of raw courtesy, we would wait for somebody else to make a point if they wanted to. And we both have.
But
there's no two ways about it.
If I may, though, just to address the chat a little bit, and I take it that JC Armitage is not strawmanning you in this, Smiles?
Oh, and wait, why exactly reading it? What did he say?
And why exactly do you think you need some kind of government or workers' council to solve a problem? You do believe in a
It depends. I mean, if we feel like that we need a council to solve it, then yeah. But if we don't need a council, then we don't need to construct one.
What's the difference between that and a government? Because I don't see the difference, and therefore it makes your anarcho-communism definitely even more so not anarchist.
Quit trying to skip to the end. Quit trying to skip to the end, right? Because if you just skip to the end here, it's not going to make any sense. It's why I've been going at the rate that
I appreciate that.
Okay, but what
so
about
you're
my
saying,
question, Smiles?
Well,
What's the difference between a workers' council and a government?
What's the word? Not impermanence.
Right.
Like once the solution's solved, it goes away.
Right. So this is why it is so relevant to go through line by line why they don't go away, right? Because presumably the correct answer is, well, when we're done, they're just gone. Yeah. The problem is that's not what happens, right? And so what we end up with is this situation where you do end up with people attracted to power in positions of power, right? And so you create authoritarian communism in 2 cycles of this council, 3, 5. How many is it that would be acceptable?
And I might have to think about that.
All right,
because it's not up to me ultimately. It would be up to many people. But you're asking me, and so I should answer. But I don't necessarily have an answer right now.
A little interesting thing being brought up by Nope here. Give them healthcare so we can form death panels like the NHS. And I do want to say it's kind of, well, I guess it's not relevant to the conversation that you two have, but there was like an article that I read not too long ago where the NHS was denying healthcare just because of alleged bigotry from the patient.
Slightly more complicated.
Sounds like a freedom of speech issue kind of a thing. Yeah, that's.
Well, so it is sort of exemplary of the problem.
You know what story I'm talking about?
Well, everybody should have a say. That's, I suppose. Okay. All right. Actually, maybe I found what I've been looking for.
Sure.
The council is in charge, but everybody has a vote. Okay. The thing is, like, if you're involved, if you're a worker under this regime or whatever, first of all, it's volunteer.
Sure.
It's if you don't want to go, you don't want to go. And if we don't have enough volunteers to do it, then the problem's probably not going to get solved.
So what you're describing is a representative republic.
No, because because if people don't like it, they can do it. And yeah, you're right. It perhaps is a republic, but everybody gets their own vote, so it isn't it's more democratic because you're not voting who decides what you do with your vote.
I mean,
you're voting on the solution.
It's kind of just indirect democracy at this point.
So you have
more or less, but it's a little bit more nuanced.
I'm a little bit guessing, but in an attempt to sort of fill in some holes here. So you would have a council who, for example,
only if the council is necessary. If we need somebody to tell others what to do. If we have a lot of people and we need, people to do it, but otherwise people can do it themselves.
At this point,
this is necessary, and we'll do it.
At this point, we're presuming the necessity of a council for some reason. Whatever the reason is, there is some reason, and the reason doesn't actually matter. Or I'd care more about what it was. So there is a council, and this council is going to presumably best and brightest all the great platitudes, and then they are going to come up with 2, maybe 3 answers to the problem. And then they are going to present that to the public at large, who is going to have a plebiscite.
As in a direct democracy. Yeah.
Yay, mob rule.
Well, if you're affected, then you should have a say, and you can obviously have your say.
Who determines who's affected?
The person. You're offered the chance. Are you affected by this? You can say.
Okay. So
now, obviously, people could
everyone is
abuse that potentially, but that would be the way it would be. Like if you have enough food, if you have access to food, then you shouldn't necessarily, I suppose, then you wouldn't be the one affected by the shortage of food. But they would say, look, we need help at giving food to those people. It doesn't even necessarily mean give up food. It just means help create the supply lines, or whatever the things to get people the food that they need.
Okay, so clearly I drive on the road at some point. These things are going to cross a road, therefore I'm affected.
In the sense that you may be behind them in traffic, or they're going to hit you and hurt you.
I'm affected.
Okay.
Everybody is affected. And
okay. So,
it's
all right.
going to be true of every problem, right?
Yeah.
So
and I appreciate
it may be really, really tenuous. And that's sort of the point here, is that they will be tenuous, but everybody is affected as soon as somebody is making a decision, right? So everybody is voting.
And also, eventually, every situation like this would be automated too. And
be that as it may, people are still affected. So now we're going to be voting on whether or not the automation, so whether or not there's going to be driver's list trucks that do all the magical things and put food.
They would have their own lanes.
Sure,
I would imagine.
Except now somebody has to go build all that. Right now we have. I'm affected because the traffic that I will incur on my way to work while they're building these additional lanes. I'm affected because the road I was going to put in my driveway now is waiting for, I don't know. Here's
the other thing: is your work. It is very nuanced. I will admit, and sometimes I might not always have the answer immediately. And I appreciate you asking these questions, because this is how we learn.
Sure.
And while our ideas are libertarian, we do have very different ideas of how it will go out. And of course, we also are ultimately conjecturing about human nature, which I believe to be more communal than perhaps you might.
I appreciate the filibustering prior to changing the subject, but no less, we still have this problem that everyone is affected, and thereby is going to vote on whatever these councils suggest, right?
Right. I don't think that everybody's going to vote on everything, though. Do you?
Well, presumably,
some people will.
Presumably, people are going to vote when it is most in their interest to vote, just as they do with everything else, right? So
Agreed.
The people who will be most, what we are talking about here is special interests. That's it. That's who's going to be voting.
Yeah, you're saying special interests as in individuals. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. And that's true, but the special interests wouldn't be motivated by profit.
So,
as Nope kind of said in the chat, and we are thoroughly into fantasy.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, we're totally off the topic, but the person never showed up.
This is really a conversation of theories. It seems like, of how my ideal society would theoretically work.
Which is ironically, since we're not talking about religion, kind of what we wouldn't want to.
Yeah, that's why I put the banner at the bottom of the stream there. We've moved on from the title subject. We're now talking about other issues.
So we are talking about religion, right? Because this is the problem. Is that all?
I love your voice, by the way. You have a very
authoritarian voice.
Authoritarian. You have a very, I do like it. Got a very good. You got a great face.
By the way,
for radio.
But by the way, he is bisexual, so he might be hitting on you, Don.
I didn't know that, but okay.
All right. No. I said I was talking to Don. Yeah, you were.
I
way to go, Dark. Now he's excited.
Anyway.
Well, thanks for your few cents on contribution, Mjollnir Man. See you later.
The various verbal fellation aside, so we end up with this problem, right, where a lot of this does not play out in reality, and the closest facsimiles we have ever seen went horribly. And so the criticism of, and to be fair, I am reaching a little bit here, but of the edgy YouTube atheist is that religion is unprovable and does not appropriately reflect reality, therefore we should dismiss it. Well, if that is the case, then these situations where we have gotten anywhere near socialism, communism, etc., would apply. And the fervor with which they are held to is a religious fervor, right? And that is not, it is not a, I realize I say that as a, it is everybody. However, there are, I mean, your major people talking about this, they speak with religious fervor. They are not speaking in some sort of scientific calm fashion. They're right, and they
again,
in a microphone.
Both sides have that problem.
Yeah,
Sure.
The conversation went back full circle. Like, for example, the Freedom from Religion Foundation freaking out about how dare a football coach be praying like at one point in a football game.
Exactly. But hold on a minute, because there's an important relevance here, right? So this is why earlier it was so important whether or not other ideas must be held to the same standard as religion, because they aren't. Now, whether or not they should be seems like a totally reasonable question, but one that is skipped over. And again, when I say we are talking about religion, and forgive me for pointing out the obvious, but what so often comes out of your mouth when I ask a question is an absence of knowledge. And thus, prior to that absence of knowledge was faith.
I suppose I see what you're saying. But also, again, we're also going on faith that when you describe a situation, you're saying a counsel for whatever problem. But it's important that the problem isn't specified. That makes it anything, and it can be used for both my help and yours.
Well, so this is the thing. As long as you're discussing the mechanics of the council, it doesn't matter what the problem is, because you overlay the mechanics of the council onto the problem, right? So if the problem is that I'm hoarding diapers and then selling them to my neighbors for sexual favors,
or hoarding toilet paper,
sure. But if I'm hoarding diapers and selling them to my neighbors for sexual favors, who is most affected? My neighbors, right? Everyone that has an interest in this is me and the close people around me who presumably are providing me sexual favors. Now,
well, you have more than one neighbor, right?
Presumably so.
There's no other people, perhaps.
Right. And so people who care about them also care, right?
Do you have evidence? I mean, look, well, okay. I'm sorry. You continue.
So look, presumably all we're actually doing here is creating a system of special interests that are the only ones who vote in mass plebiscites, right? Because if the problem the council is solving, and let's be honest, no matter how they frame it, the problem the council is solving is that I'm hoarding diapers, right? So all you're really doing is saying, well, that guy has too many diapers, so we're going to go take them and then give them to other people.
Well, the other people need diapers, and he has some he's not using, which...
But
you could say it as he has too many, but it's not too many until other people need them and you are not using them.
Hold on a minute. I am using them. I'm trading those motherfuckers for sexual favors. My long list of blowjobs depends on those diapers.
Yeah, okay. But trading them for your own interest is not using them in this thing. Using them would be actually using them for whatever your child or yourself, if you're not, if that's what you're using.
So Don the Pleb is pimping a whole lot of mothers, y'all.
He is. He certainly is.
So who determines what using them correctly is? Because that's actually what you're talking about. It's not that I'm not using them. I'm not using them correctly. Clearly, I am using them. I'm trading these motherfuckers for blowjobs. However, that is an incorrect usage. And now we have a restriction on what I can do with my own property, and we're already edging into authoritarianism.
Okay. And, well, my answer is that private property would no longer be a concept.
I do want to be asking, by the way, in this alleged anarcho, air quotes, communist society, we get it. I mean, what do you do about hoarding and possession of businesses? I don't know if I got like a solid answer in the live stream that I had with you, but would there be somebody that would like confiscate that property?
He's literally getting to that. That is the very next thing about to come out of his mouth, right? Because that's what the statement "there is no private property" is about, right? So you have nothing to lose because nothing is yours.
Well, let's segue into the answer.
Well, let me say the other half of that statement.
Sure.
Nobody, nothing belongs to anybody. Everything belongs to everybody.
Okay.
So you have access to it. You
So-
can have those diapers. But you have the same right to it as everybody else. And if there's not enough diapers,
So what if somebody takes more than their fair share?
Yeah.
that's the thing. Is you other people have just as much of a right to that as you do.
No. What if they take their more than their fair share? I mean, what do we do then? Do we confiscate it off them?
Other people who need them may have to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
And
look, this is where we're edging into authoritarianism, right? And by the way, also the problem of all of those authoritarian socialist and communist states in the past, because there is a reality and simply no way around it that resources are limited. There is not unlimited resource.
Well, on Earth there isn't. But if like,
are we going to Saturn? What?
Well, actually, we have the capability. We don't do it because it's not profitable.
Okay, so
but we have the capability of creating space like habitats. We could do. There's essentially unlimited resources in the asteroid belt.
Hold on, because even if that's true, our ability to get them is limited, right? Once you start
for now, yes.
No, it will always be limited, right? At no point will we have literal infinity. So while the marginal utility of a thing may decrease so far that it is effectively free, right? Or close enough. The simple reality is that won't be universally true either. So even though water is incredibly common all over the globe, right? I mean, it's one of the things that makes Earth Earth. There is not an unlimited supply of water. And the water that we have must be processed in various fashions to make sure.
But it's made of oxygen and hydrogen.
Sure, but there's not unlimited.
You can make that. Those are some of the two most, like, hydrogen is certainly the most abundant element in the entire universe.
And yet, it's still not unlimited. There would be a process to create it, right? So despite that there is nearly, as we stand on Earth, there is substantially more water than we necessarily need, right? If you were to come up with some
but we're not the only ones who need it, too. I mean, there's like fish, for instance.
Sure, right. Now, even aside from fish, we have more than we quote need. In fact, if we were to have some capability to just ensure perfect quantities of distribution of water and none was ever wasted, then presumably we would never have any problems with water, except that it never really works out like that. But that aside, there is still a limitation given certain places. A glass of water to me is 100 times more valuable in the middle of 29 Palms, California, than it is sitting next to a lake, right?
Yeah, I would agree, I suppose. Yeah, but you still have it, and of course you would have it due to capitalistic transportation and resource gathering methods. But when the goal is everybody has some water, we can make sure everybody has water. It's not as difficult as you're making it seem.
There is a lot that goes into that simple statement.
You're right. And it is very complicated, but technology is really, it's unfathomable. And I mean, but again, we don't need unlimited resources. We don't need literally unlimited resources.
But you do for everyone to be able to take as much as they.
Whoa. What the hell?
I don't know. Things just swapped around a bunch. Darkon's doing something. But
he's gone.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
If people are permitted to take as much as they want, right, then they will.
Holy shit. I do not know what the fuck happened there.
Yeah. What's crazy is that you were the last one to return. That's what amazes me. Anyway,
so, look,
as you were
people will take as much as they want, and so at bare minimum, in localities, you will have a strangled supply compared to where something is near universally available right next to it, right? So if you want fresh water and you live, I don't know, next to one of the Great Lakes, I don't even know if they're salted.
Then, well, okay, you're near a freshwater lake.
Sure, you're near a freshwater lake, right? So my capability in 29 Palms to get fresh water will never, no matter what happens, match somebody next to a freshwater lake. They can simply walk over there and pick some up and take it. Unless we need to manage the distribution of every drop of water to make sure that people get some, in which case they can't do that.
All right. So what you're trying to get me to say is that let me rephrase that. What you're expecting me to say is that we want somebody to put a fence around the lake to prevent the person from doing that. Okay.
Presumably, that would be an incredible violation of anarcho-communism, right? Because even if it wasn't private property, it would inherently have created state property, right? Mm-hmm. And state property would thereby begin the de-evolution into authoritarian communism.
Mm-hmm. Let me with water specifically, and again, while still on Earth, because I view anarcho-communism as more of an interplanetary society. Because I know it sounds ridiculous, but
I just kind of feel like that moves the goalpost. Like it's kind of like
but that's why I'm saying I'm putting that out there. But on Earth, I think.
This kind of.
But yeah. Anyway, okay. Let me finish. The person lives closer to the lake. They can take a water and they can put a cup in the water and drink the water, and someone far away doesn't have that immediate access. Now there would be supply lines because everybody needs water, but also somebody could have some form of, we could transport them there. They could find a way to get to there if they really want to do it.
That doesn't alleviate the supply problem they have. It just says that they can get up and leave if they don't like it.
But also I'm trying to keep in mind that there would be people who would be unable to potentially move there. We could have them moved. But what you're saying is I would have to, ideally there would be a council that creates water and decides how much water everybody needs.
Wait. At some point, it is going to become somewhat necessary.
That creates water. We are really talking about Star Trek Replicator.
No, creates.
I don't need to break his. I don't need to break his balls over some shorthand. Presumably, it is filtered or cleaned or piped or these things wouldn't need to happen.
You're talking about like salinating salt water into fresh
water.
Now
we have stores where you go in and you buy it.
Right.
What I would imagine is that we would have similar things like stores, like places. I mean, obviously, we would hopefully also have tap water in our homes that we have access to.
Sure.
But we would have similar institutions, but it wouldn't be your wallet would not be your decision to get there. But you're also then worried that people would take more than they needed just because they like to accumulate.
So who determines more than they need, right? So as I'm a fucking redneck at least 50% of the time. I go four-wheeling, shooting, I hang out in the fucking woods. If I go to the store and take 10 bottles of water, which I do, right? I go and I buy 2-3
24 packs
of water, right? And if I go take 3 or 4 of them, how are we determining that I'm not hoarding?
I would assume that there's more. Okay, but that's semantic, I suppose. Okay, so you're trying to, and this is a good question, is how do we decide if people are hoarding? I don't remember what it was called. I believe that there was a study about a buffet where people took more when they paid, but they didn't take as much when they were allowed to just sort of have what they were hungry for, because they wanted to get what they paid for as opposed to just eating.
Sure.
Which is sort of what I would imagine on a mass scale would be sort of what happens.
But back to the diapers, right? So what evidence is required that I am hoarding? No, I don't want to fucking
go
outside.
the people saying that you're asking for sexual favors?
What about them? Do they need to provide evidence of that?
Well, yes, obviously. But at the same time, if they need diapers, look, my kids here, I don't have any diapers. There's none at the institution. This guy has extra.
How did we determine that I have extra?
I mean, because everything. I mean, I suppose. This is great questions. I like these. Because I mean, they could result in, I suppose, somebody would have to come into your house and say, "Look, you don't need these." But it wouldn't be a government. It would probably just be the town.
Okay, so the town, like, I mean, not to be a complete asshat about this, but the town is going to then, how many people qualifies before? Because my understanding is that there is no personal property. However, there is private property. So if you had a house that had been in your family or something,
no, there is no,
and your family lived there.
There is, you have a right to privacy, but there is no private property. You can't try to make money off of it or something like that, because again, there wouldn't really be any incentive to do so other than you want sexual favors. But I mean, there would be,
because I have laid that out.
Yes,
but presumably that's not a thing that is known, right?
Yeah, that's
other
not
than some sort of town rumor that isn't known, right? Whoever it is that I'm extorting for blowjobs probably knows, but now we're to the point where, well, okay, just because they said it, I mean,
I don't see this as a realistic scenario, because the premise is assuming that somebody's going to hoard something, which is possible, but it's just like, how could they do that with something? If you're using diapers as an example, obviously you're not talking about diapers, but the problem with diapers is that most people don't notice if there's not enough of them. And if there's not enough of them,
I think it's more likely in situations like we're in right now. I mean, to say like it probably wouldn't happen. I mean, if you're like faced with a pandemic, I think people would retreat to.
It already happens. Right?
I don't want to like mention the forbidden to mention beer virus explicitly, but
look,
wait. So one thing that I want to ask, I know that this stream has just recently gone on the 2-hour mark. Don, I know that you said before this stream went live that you had another stream scheduled that was going to talk about the Forbidden Dimension beer virus.
Yeah.
When was that scheduled?
I got about 90 minutes before it goes live, which means I should probably already be out of here. But I never, ever get to talk to ANCOM. So,
And I'm here. I'm part of the group too. Cool. So I'm happy to continue this later on.
Right.
But I could also say,
like, schedule a one-on-one. But let's not talk about diapers explicitly if you don't want to like use that as an example.
Well, here's the thing:
like,
is it
toilet paper,
necessary,
eggs, milk, something like that, maybe?
I mean, feminine products and child rearing projects are necessary.
Well, right, but let's talk about
necessary, but not to all sectors of society. I think that's what he's trying to say.
Let's talk about something that can be more universally used than just by mothers to like make sure that their children's butts are cleaned.
Yeah.
Let's talk about like food, for example. And Dawn.
So presumably, because look, there's a lot of games that have to be played here, in my opinion, but presumably you couldn't hoard food, right? Yeah. For any number of reasons. There would be an unlimited amount.
Hoard food to the point that it would affect others, really.
And that unto itself is a statement of unlimited resources, right? Because if there is this,
well, no, it's not. It's saying that there is limited resources, and that because if you could take enough to affect other people, therefore it is limited.
Okay, so there is some possibility that you could do this. Why wouldn't people do it?
It would go bad. You can't eat all that food.
Don't have to. Okay.
Let's talk about non-perishable food. Let's talk about non-perishable food, like cans of beans and so forth.
Don't skip over perishable food. Perishable food's fine, right? I get me and 50 other guys with guns. Well, come at me, bro. You know, I mean,
Yeah, he's
then we get guys like 500 more guys with guns. Like everybody.
Boy.
Why
So
doesn't
authoritarian.
why
I agree with Mjollnir Man.
hold on a second.
Decimation.
No, the answer to that is obvious, right? Presumably, I am running a criminal enterprise, and the entire city is going to decide they don't like it. So the entire city as a whole is going to rise up and stop and attempt to fucking end my criminal enterprise. The question then becomes, why doesn't that happen?
Why doesn't the criminal enterprise start in the beginning, is what you're saying? Right?
No. Why doesn't the populace stand up to the criminal enterprise?
Oh, you're saying
in
practice,
reality,
it doesn't
happen.
Well, I suppose because it's probably because they still had to deal with money and things like that, and having to deal with other countries and things like that, which is unfortunately makes my ideals again are rather pie in the sky in that I want to leave the planet, and if we had our own space habitats that can interact with each other, and basically we had drones that could
I have been overtly avoiding intergalactic space communism coming out of my mouth, but you're pushing me pretty hard here, man.
I know. So you're talking about the time between now and then, and
even post then, there is a reality of life that people will put up with a lot of pushing into their lives before they stand up and are violent. And it's not about having to deal with anybody else. It is a simple fact that criminals are indeed violent during these criminal enterprises. What's his name? Al Capone, notoriously a ridiculously vicious human being.
Because alcohol was outlawed.
Yes, don't get me wrong. There is a whole lot of things that
the criminal enterprises only prop up when there's incentive to do so, which generally could be money, which creates power, or food coupons or something like that. Whatever could be used as capital.
That's the thing. This is the line right here. There is always incentive to do so. Always.
I don't think that. I mean, if we get rid of. If the incentive becomes when we're all better off, we're all better off. And there are some people who would be impatient. There are some people who would not participate in this society, but they would still be, given, a house and some and their own amount of food.
Sure.
I just.
If people were satisfied with a house and their own amount of food, then let's be honest, most of the Western world.
So you would say, they have their house, they have the amount of food they have their minimum calories handled. They want more. So what do? They go to a psychologist that helps them find out what they want to do, and then they go to educate themselves to find that thing. What I'm saying is crime. Thank you for saying that, because it leads me to crime is an issue of poverty and mental health. So if they can, what? You disagree?
Oh boy, back on this subject. Me and him kind of went back and forth on our last stream, but now it's you.
We have not necessarily unlimited, but we have enough resources and the means of getting them. People hoarding would be an issue of mental health because they're not being satisfied in some part of their life, so they need to have power over others. And so we would say, look, this person feels the need to exert power over others, so they need help. We need to help them as a community.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, so presumably wishing to have the power over someone else is unto itself a mental health problem, thereby categorizing anything that comes out of that.
It's an insecurity in some fashion.
Okay, so possibly, let's even just take that on the nose for the moment as hypothetically true. So anyone who wishes to have power over other people, every power structure is
to the point of exerting it.
Okay.
Everyone wants to have power once in a while, but to the point of exerting it is it's like everybody you want to punch in the face the guy who cuts you off, but you don't actually get out of your car and do it.
Well, hold on. Back to us doing 80% of the talking in the stream. How much therapy do we need?
Possibly a lot. I mean, I think everybody should have access to a mental health professional. I think that we should,
Okay.
And by access, I don't mean you have to go. I mean, you have to have the ability to if you want to go.
Right, presumably so. Now that causes another supply issue, but let's leave that alone for a moment.
But people like doing that, and if they have access to education and learn how to do it, they would be available.
Let's say that somehow works.
We're putting it to the side.
Hold on a second. So, presumably, this power structure problem, despite that one has just shown up from nowhere in this stream, would be a problem. Right.
When you say stream, do you mean this stream, this live stream? Okay.
Right now.
So if somebody showed up and did what?
No, this power structure that look, the two most assertive people in this stream are you and I. That is a power structure. I am simply willing to jump in on other people's balls where other people are not.
Okay, in a way, but I could always do this.
Yeah, he has the power. But to answer your question, Pleb, people are interested in what we're saying. If they weren't interested in what we were saying, we would talk about something else.
Possibly.
Possibly. But
regardless of whether or not
we will talk in the future and not have this conversation eventually.
Regardless of whether or not these two are interested in what we're saying, very clearly you and I are interested in what we're saying.
Yeah, we are.
Darkon, I'm not saying you're not interested. I'm saying it is irrelevant whether or not you're interested because the assertiveness of the people who are doing the talking
I don't think
created that power structure.
Yes, but also the assertiveness and also the fact that people are willing to listen because we have made it very clear that if you want to interject, you can.
Sure. On the other hand,
people have, but continually it comes back to us.
And yet this continues to exist.
But it's not power. It's just we are. Oh, actually, you're right. It isn't power, and we've developed it, and eventually it will dissolve. Of course, it will have to be cut off. But if we continue to have these live streams in the future, it's not going to always be you and me, even if we're both here.
That power now resides in Darkon's hands.
Hold on.
Terminated. So,
I know this is true wherever I go, right? Which is to say that 9 days out of 10, I'm the most assertive person I ever meet. Right? It's just the way that
people need therapy to be more assertive.
And is that it? Because now are we suggesting that this power by which I have to be assertive is something that everybody needs, or that there is a power
at least the base level, so that they don't get trampled by the people who have the assertiveness?
It's a slightly irrelevant issue, anyways, because being assertive is not a moral issue, but.
No, it's not, but it is an important thing because if you're not assertive, you can't. People, the squeaky wheel doesn't get greased. The squeaky wheel gets greased. You have to speak up.
It's more
there it is.
Go ahead.
So therein is the problem, right? Back to who is it that what is going to happen when I'm trading sexual favors for diapers, right? If those people are not as big of dicks as me, then they're going to be these people that are running around being perpetual victims right now.
But clearly, you're not being satisfied sexually. So
well, clearly I am after all these fucking diapers.
Yes, but obviously you're not satisfied because you're continuing to do it, and you're finding ways in order to exert power over people in order to do that. What you need is to find another outlet for this desire.
Are we the power dynamic? That's the question.
Well, say again.
It's not even the question, right? So, like, I get that it's all let's play the feminist sex power game, but hold on a minute. So,
you use sexual favors as your capital.
No. I'm responding in kind. Are we about to have state-sponsored hookers? That's what I want to know.
Sure, if that's what they want. I don't see it. Like, people need look. Yeah, some girls like to do that. Some guys like to do that too. And unfortunately, probably a lot more gentlemen would rather do that than women. But if it's made okay, because the religion isn't in here saying that you're moralized, you're not allowed to have sex before you're married. If your pussy's too loose, there's a problem with you. There's fucking that's not a problem. You're allowed to have sex with anyone you want. If you want to do that, go right ahead. If you don't want to do that, if you're not being satisfied sexually, then perhaps you need to make yourself more attractive to women, and perhaps a therapist can help you with that.
Hashtag sex is not a right.
You need to make yourself more attractive to women, but that is a problem of scarce supply, and let's face it, that's a price mechanism, right? So if I have 71 abs, I'm more attractive to women. right? And the price of being of having 71.
Well, you know, sometimes being assertive is attractive.
It is.
So guess what? Find your thing. The whole community is here to help you. Not every single individual at all times, but we're all here together to help each other with the implicit, you know, expectation that when you are needed, you will be helpful too. And if you're not, then you are marked as a loss. But most people will cover your slack.
Over that.
What?
Marked as a loss. What does that mean?
Some people are going to play video games in their room in the dark for their entire lives. And that's okay. But 99% of the time, those people are, because they aren't getting something. They have some problem that they need. They need to discuss this with somebody. They need to get out more. It's a problem of internal not getting what you need.
So
like
why is this a problem if they don't find it to be one?
If they don't find it, then they're allowed to do that. But they should be encouraged to see a mental health professional to discuss and say, look, you know, maybe you want to do like go try something. You know, don't just do that. If that's what they want to do and they're happy to do that and they're not hurting anyone else, go ahead, because it's going to be such a small amount of people that it's not going to be a relevant issue.
But it isn't, right?
Hey, I only see 6 there. I don't see 71.
No,
Right.
I know. It's kind of more of a joke, but that I'm just making the case that
I love Joe Rogan right there.
I'm just making a case that as far as what criteria of abs is there's not an objective measure as to what beauty is within abs.
So
exactly.
Hold on a minute.
But I'm liking what we're talking about here.
Why would there be a limit of people who are, let's face it, not working is what it comes down to, right?
The reason these people aren't working is because most of the reason they're not working is because they're not fulfilled. They can't do what they want to do or what they're useful at, and they feel useless, and so they choose to exit society, which is what happens now.
So
I think that's their fault then.
In a system,
but they should have access to the opportunities to get out of that, is what I'm saying, and rather than pay for it.
In a system that supposedly requires them to do something valuable for society, or they will starve to death. This is a general tenet, right? Like, starve to death is a pretty big incentive.
Right? It is a pretty big incentive, and unfortunately, it can't make money appear out of nowhere in your pocket.
If you get
it takes money to make money.
If you get some lonely male bum that refuses to take up the cashier job despite the possibility of starving to death, well, I'm sorry to say, but that's
maybe he can't afford a razor either, and they won't hire him because he can't shave his goddamn beard.
You were talking about unwillingness to work. You were not talking about unable to get a razor.
I'm talking about unwillingness to work being a lot less frequent than you guys. Than we may believe it to be. I think that it is more of an access of opportunity, a lack of opportunity.
I mean, it doesn't matter to me as to how frequent it is or not. My point still stands.
If that is the case, then why is it with the expansion of a welfare state, which does produce not the same, but at least similar incentive structures, we see an increase in people taking welfare, people not working?
Well, they often lose that welfare if they end up working, so they kind of get trapped. But and that's true, that's the case. So it's like you're making the same amount of money sitting on your ass than you are working. So of course it's easier to not work. But in this case, there is no money. You have access to food. So look, I'm listening.
You hold on. So
I am.
You might lose resources if you took a job, and thereby welfare disincentivizes going back to work. It's a hell of a right-wing take, but by all means, welcome to the party.
Yeah.
Now,
right.
On the other hand, there are plenty of people and large swaths of them who are going to school for 20 years while they have a kid and staying on welfare. This is not a lack of access to work, right? They are simply not working, and it is every year a growing number of people. It is not a shrinking number of people. A growing number of people are doing this. Now,
because again, the companies are making a lot more productivity off the same amount of people. So why hire more people? They're making way more money, and they're not paying them more. They're just the productivity is going way up, but the pay is not. So the hiring is not.
a lot of reasons that digress from the point that's not accurate, but hold on. So we're going to remove the incentive structure of money, the ability to starve, and somehow with all incentives to work removed, everyone is going to decide to work.
Yeah, it sounds ridiculous, I know, but it's
because
look,
it is.
have you ever like look, boredom is a crazy incentivizer, honestly, possibly even more than starvation. Because clearly, as you guys would say, starvation is not quite the incentive that it should be for everybody.
Well, if people were actually starving, it would be, but they're not.
Yeah. Well, look, again, they have perhaps these people don't know what they can do. And so they think they can't do anything. And so they don't want to do anything. And so they just take their chicken nuggets and play their video games and watch Joker on repeat forever.
And so with that being a totally reasonable output in this society, why, if that is
because
totally
they have parents, they have friends, they've met people, and again, I'm willing to, which I think that you sort of have a problem with, if I may, that anyone would be unproductive. But I think that if everybody is a little bit productive, at least the majority of people are a little bit productive, we would have enough for everybody, and people wouldn't have to work as much as they do now.
So
like if productivity
that's
went to everybody rather than to their capitalists.
The point isn't that some small quantity of people would show up and be unproductive, right? The point is that if unproductiveness is subsidized, and that's what you're talking about doing, right? Then you will get more unproductiveness.
Unproductiveness is allowed for, and it is highly encouraged, and people are allowed to do whatever they can to become productive, even if that means just chop some wood for a little while, or just do something, go outside and do something rather than because what's stopping most people from going outside and doing something is they need to pay to go, eat. They need to pay to go to the movies. They need to pay to go to school. They need to pay to do anything. If you have access to that and you're subsidized, you can have the ability to go out and make mistakes and choose things and find things and find where you no longer start making mistakes. And
then why would I do any work, right? Because I mean, yeah, sure. Maybe I don't know, decide to start a YouTube channel, or I don't know, maybe on Tuesday I cut some wood and that's exciting. And then I find out it's real hard work and I don't want to do that because I'm sore for 5 days.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is not an unreasonable response to cutting a lot of wood.
No, it's not an unreasonable response. Cutting wood is quite a thing. But
on the other hand, right? I have no necessity of doing any of that. And on the other hand, I can just go watch movies in the theater and have all the popcorn I want and drink all the soda I want. And I mean, evidently there might be only like 3 kinds of soda, but still there will be soda and I can drink as much as I want.
Maybe you want to be in one of those movies. Maybe you're a YouTuber. Maybe you should. So perhaps you can find help in helping other people make their YouTube videos, and then you learn about YouTube videos and you can make your own. And also automation will be streamlined. Because, we don't necessarily need people to chop the wood anymore. We have a machine that'll do it.
Okay. So
because we're not worried about that machine taking people's jobs.
And this is where we get back to unlimited resources, right? Because this is going to be a problem for every sector of work, right? Some work is more effort than no work. Just by definition, some work is more effort than no work.
But humans evolved to do something. Even if that thing makes no sense to some primitive. Well, hold on. What does this person say? If you pay people to do nothing, they will go on holiday or do free stuff. The incentive is there not to work. Again, but the thing is, you're saying pay. These people aren't getting paid. There's no pay involved. You're able to go to the store.
They're not getting pie. Okay, they're not technically getting paid money, because obviously in your society there would be no money, but they're getting paid supplies. They're being given supplies in general.
Right. You're cutting out the middleman that is money, right? Money is a standardized item for the easier exchange of goods.
They decide how much.
Presumably, presumably, as opposed to using money, since there would be none, they would be subsidized. It would just no longer be in the form of cash, right? So they would just go to the store and get, 4,000 gallons of Mountain Dew Code Red, go back and play World of Warcraft for 71 hours.
What you're doing is you're focusing on such a small part of the population, because the vast majority of people wouldn't just do that. Like you and I are doing. I'm sure, like, you probably have work like anyone else does, but we're still doing something. We're going out. We're trying to. We're not just sitting in a room passively, doing stuff. We're participating.
What reasoning do you have to believe that is a small section of the population?
Statistics. I mean, people feel the reason that everybody is so. The reason.
Yeah, that's my question too.
The fact that this is happening now, when people feel like they can't go to college, they can't do this and that, they just stay at home.
This isn't a statistic. What statistics are we talking about?
Okay. Well, I would have to go and find them, and that may take some time.
No. Look, I may or may not have some argument with some number you kick out. What statistics are we talking about in general?
Fact that
the unemployment rate is a statistic, right?
Yeah. And also people, like, satisfaction with your life. If you're not satisfied, you don't do things. But when you have the opportunity to do things that are satisfying, you'll go out and do them.
So life satisfaction surveys? Is that the statistic we're talking about?
Yeah. Well, think about it. I don't have numbers with me because I wasn't prepared that we were.
Like I said, just give me a categorical one.
Yeah, happiness surveys. Why not? People in countries that are happier do better things.
What are we juxtaposing a happiness survey to say that people will go out and work?
People who are satisfied with their work do better jobs.
Yes. That is not, I mean, that's not a statistic though, right? So
that's not okay, but it's a fact.
Overall happiness surveys are not job satisfaction surveys. And equally speaking, if you don't have to work, then I'm much more satisfied with any number of things than boatloads of stuff that I've done for work in my life, right? I worked in a call center at some point. It was the least satisfying thing I've probably ever done in my life. But
and in my society, call centers probably wouldn't exist.
Okay, so
the only reason that they exist is to advertise, is to get people to buy things. Well, I mean, you have.
No, they also exist to. They also exist to try and. They also exist to try and help people figure out how to use their product or
That's
whatever.
what I'm saying. Those are different than call centers, though. Those are
that is a call center. I worked in a technical support call center.
Okay, right? So a tech support call center. Okay, and you didn't like doing it, and most people don't like doing that. That's fair, but if you want to. I don't see how. I mean, most of it's automated at this point anyway. The only thing is it's automated for profit. If it's automated publicly and things like that, the AI can learn a lot better and it can be a lot more useful.
Wait a minute. Where does that come from, right? Because what you're talking about is somehow the tragedy of the commons will cease to exist.
Yeah.
In fact, not only will it cease to exist, it will invert.
Yeah. I mean, look, because because again, the tragedy of the commons is people, starting to take more and then others taking more in response and then it's all gone. But
no. That's not what the tragedy of the commons is.
Mad Cat are saying something relevant on call centers.
There are plenty of call centers that focus purely on medical things. That is true.
Yeah. And those call centers, again, would probably be taken over by AI.
So hold on. The tragedy of the commons is not one person will take some, therefore everybody else will take more. The tragedy of the commons is that when something doesn't belong to you, you don't have any incentive to take care of it. I mean, who really cares? It's not yours anyway. And as long as it is supposed to be perpetually there forever, then may as well abuse that versus what it is that is yours.
But it does belong to you. But it also belongs to everybody else too.
See, that's where the commons is, right? This is the public property problem. This is why public parks look worse than private parks. Why way earlier in the stream, public schools look worse than private schools, right? Because it's not yours. It's not a thing that you're taking care of, right? So
you wouldn't take part in these things, though.
So
I mean, again, school would be voluntary. You wouldn't go to these. The public schools wouldn't be on every block and underfunded because there wouldn't be as many of them, because there wouldn't be as necessary, because not everybody would be using them.
That doesn't remove the tragedy of the commons problem.
It does, because it makes it voluntary. You wouldn't be in anywhere that you don't feel necessary.
Voluntarism is not relevant to the tragedy of the commons, right? So that's not the economics problem that you're having, right? So if I don't know, I'm just going to use the classic example. If there are two people who raise cows and they each have their own fields, they are incentivized, right, to keep the cows in, which presumably is going to be necessary because you don't want.
But why are they keeping the cows? Are they keeping the cows as pets, or are they trying to sell their meat, sell their milk, and etc.?
Who cares? And Commonsense is going.
It does matter. The whole thing is.
Wait.
So it all
hear me out.
Okay.
It doesn't matter because Commonsense is still going to need steak, right? Like presumably.
Yeah, but we could also grow fake steak too.
Okay. Look, technology is not magic. All right.
No, you're right. But people like technology, and people want to build better technology. And a lot of people are incentivized to build that technology by profit, but most of the time they build it for a company, and the company takes it over, and they don't really get the credit that they deserve, which is something that I imagine that you would be interested in, and credit and all that. But I feel like if everybody has access to every other patent and everything like that, the person can go to school to learn how to make technology that they want to make. They have access to everybody else's technology, how it works. They can ask questions, learn all about it, and they can improve upon it easily.
This isn't the point of the statement, technology is not magic, right? So you have fairly consistently just leaned on eventually technology will take care of it, right? Now, look, maybe it will. Maybe there is some day where we are so close to unlimited resources because technology has acquiesced to this demand of ours to get us there. There is no indication that is on the horizon, right? There's
no indication it's on the horizon because it's not necessarily profitable in the short term.
Oh, it's definitively profitable. Right.
Yeah, but not necessarily with the investment it might take and the time it might take. They don't know how long it's going to be, and it could be a dead end, and that could really screw them over.
Right.
Because again, you're doing it for your own personal gain at the end of the day. You're not doing it because it will help humanity.
And now we come to a resource that nobody can get away from being limited: time. Right. Unless we're also all going to be immortal in Commonsense, then.
Eventually, possibly, but assumingly in the short term, no.
Right, but
I would also argue in the short term we do not have advanced enough AI to satisfy every person as far as customer service goes.
Yeah, and every company has their own.
I mean, kind of like
AI
how Mad Catter.
They have to license it, or they have to develop it themselves. Whereas, why not just come together and create the best of all the different ones in one, and thus it will learn from all the other instances and come together, and it would develop much quicker.
Because best is a very subjective term.
You're right.
And time is a limited resource, right?
And so wouldn't it be quicker and use less time to bring everybody together and develop the AI together?
Not a chance, right? So what you're talking about is, and first of all, you're never going to bring everybody together. Even let's take on the presumption that everyone interested in developing AI just was developing AI, and there were somehow no barrier to entry to them anymore. And fine, that's what they're doing.
Well, the barrier to entry would be education, which is now available to them.
Okay.
And also understanding other AIs.
Lots and lots of other things are barriers to entry. Again, time. However, let's presume that's the case. Getting them all together in one place unto itself would increase the amount of talking that had to be done, right? You may notice that we are cutting through individual ideas, subsections of anarcho-communism substantially faster with 3 people on the stream than we were any topic with 6. So now we're going to get everybody together, and we're going to decrease their productivity because they're all going to be sitting arguing their own points, right? And that is fairly universal. So let's give this the best case scenario. Everybody just gets together in their own separate little sections, and they decide how it is that they're going to, in whatever local area, because they got together with 10 friends or whatever, right? And so presumably it's not all in one place, but there is now competing groups of people who are creating this AI. Now, what does best mean? And at least as importantly, how do we determine it? And how much time are we granting to failed projects repeatedly?
Okay. So, first of all, it sounds like your concern is, well, let me answer your questions. So, rather than bringing everybody in a room or a live stream to all argue their points like the Roman whatever, or they would basically just be open source, and people would look at it and improve upon it as they wish and be like, oh, look, I did this. And other people would be like, oh, that's useful. A lot like mods on video games or something like that. It wouldn't necessarily be we're gathering a bunch of people to do it. People would just do it on their own because they like it.
Can I give you an example from open source then?
Sure.
So the most famous open source project in the world is Linux. Now, Linux has been being developed since the beginning of time. Okay, that's a slight exaggeration, but
I know,
it's been around.
Since the beginning of computers, sure. Whatever.
Back in about 2000, back in about 2005-ish, a bunch of devs got together in the Linux community and decided that end user experience was bullshit and they were tired of coding for it. And Linus threw them the fuck out because
Linux is for profit.
No.
Oh,
Linux
no, I'm sorry.
Free.
Yeah, Linux is free. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
And so Linus's point was end user experience matters most, right?
That would be an example of people not wanting to come together off of motives that are not money related, it seems.
Right. It clearly is. Now, importantly here, the goal of what was best, very different, right? Because look, the guys, whether or not you think end user experience is the thing that should matter, the guys had a very serious point. We are coding all of this inefficient shit to cater to retards. Why are we doing that? Right?
Yeah, why?
And yet, the reality is Linux has an adoption problem. Don't get me wrong, servers all over the world use it. Their market share is growing to ridiculously small numbers still. But even with a focus on end user enjoyment, they can't get adoption. But some portion of the Linux community said, look, this isn't even about end user adoption. Fuck you. Let's make great code. That would have destroyed it immediately if they had to compete for it in any way, shape, or form. And Linus knew it. That's why he threw him out.
Yeah, and in communism, there would be no competition, so no competing.
Yeah, you would just make it the way you wanted to make it, and someone would make the end user experience useful. And again, like actually, and also again, everyone would have access to it. It's just like, and people would probably be more computer literate because they would learn about it because they wanted to.
Well, so
can I add a wrench into this then?
Absolutely.
If everybody's got access to it, then what's the reason for stopping myself that just likes a little bit of anarchy in general, yeah, pun intended, and just throw in a virus to destroy whatever open source that you have?
Someone would probably understand. I mean, you could do that, but like people would also be again, like someone might do that, but the most people wouldn't, and most people would be able to solve the issue perhaps. And it's just
you know internet culture, right? You know what internet culture is like, right?
But like if they get together and they decide that this virus is annoying, they'll deal with it.
Sure, but that doesn't stop me from coming back and doing another one, or somebody else and doing something that's even better than what it was before. And then someone's going to
dox you and say, look, this guy needs to stop fucking doing that.
And
sure, but then there's other people that will take my place.
Whoa, wait. Why are we stopping him? Why?
Because his fucking virus is causing problems for everybody.
Okay, so the bigger, blacker cock virus comes out, and everybody's screen is now covered in the bigger, blacker cock, right? I, who wrote the bigger, blacker cock virus, am amused in ways you can't even begin to imagine that everyone is looking at a bigger, blacker cock. This is the fulfillment of my life, and you're taking it from me.
Well, you did it. It's over now. Why did you want to do that? What? You're right. I couldn't understand, but perhaps you don't understand, and maybe you should learn about that. Why do you feel the need to put this BBC on everybody's computer? What?
Because I like big black cock.
Good. There you go.
Somebody clip that. Somebody clip that.
God damn it!
It just seems like it seems like it's kind of an irrelevant issue. Like, it just seems like, yeah, it might happen. People would deal with it, and this virus would spread, this amazing virus that, again, but people would be more computer literate in general, and they probably wouldn't open the thing that says, hey, friend, insert name here, I got this great picture of Donald Trump naked. You should download donaldtrump.exe or whatever.
Sure,
exactly. You're probably just going to be like, all right, no.
NIMDA
but
is
the point
answer
of the
to
whole
what you're
thing
describing there. But even outside of NIMDA, is I am amused that everyone is looking at bigger, blacker cock. Right. That is my amusement. I find this fulfilling. I spend a lot of time coding because presumably to have this widespread of a virus, I did. Right.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of coding, and now I am amused, as are my other 12-year-old friends. About everybody looking at a bigger, blacker cock. We're all having a great laugh about it. I have provided not only all of this coding service and identifying your security holes, as invariably I have, but also all of this amusement. Why are we stopping me from doing this?
It sounds like you found a bunch of security holes. Sounds like ultimately you did good. Sure, you're amused at what you feel like is you getting one over on other people, but it's not. You found a bunch of security holes. Other people can now fucking do that, and also you have no reason to hide the code for BBC, so we could find, we can learn from it. It sounds like a great experience overall for everyone.
I feel like that maybe possibly this conversation should have a pin put in it for you two to have your own one-on-one stream sometime, because
I'm coming up on fucking time, but this is hilarious.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm enjoying the conversation as well.
Bigger, blacker cock. And
BBC, there you go. I'm sure CSG is familiar with the BBC. He's got to deal with it all the time, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Right. Got to take it 1 inch at a time.
So,
but at least we're not charging you for it.
Commonsense Guy, have you how much of the stream have you been listening to?
Quite a bit of it, especially since the topic change.
Right, because we've gone way far away from the religious liberties discussion.
Too true.
But I don't know if there was any quick words that you wanted to give out before.
Yeah, if you have any questions,
before going off air with this. Before going off air with this stream, because I do feel like that this stream is getting a little bit too long, and that maybe you two's continual conversation on economics and economic theory.
Yeah, Pleb, do you have a YouTube channel?
You know I do.
Okay,
I've got seen it. YouTube channel of over 1,000. You both are on my Discord server, so you can communicate that way. And of course, you both have Twitters and know that, so you can either one of those two methods. So, is there any quick words on religious liberty, separation of church and state that you want to add, Commonsense Guy, or anything like that?
I suppose from a UK perspective, obviously it's different from the US and from other countries, but from a UK perspective, apart from the actual fact of separating church from state is in legislation, not even reasoning, but in state of putting church leaders into power and things like that, yeah, that should be separated. But from having points of, say, somebody that has a idea of religion that's in power, no, that shouldn't be separated at all. After all, if you separate that, then you're actually stopping people from actually taking out their own rights and actually being able to run for the country. It's the fools that put the people into power that are the problem if they do that, but actually it shouldn't be separated by law.
Wait, you think that church leaders should not become political leaders?
No. That's not what I said. I said that they shouldn't
I might have.
I said that they shouldn't be able to be church leaders first and then be politicians. By that, I mean continuously at the same time.
Sounds good.
I don't know.
You feel like a priest would. I mean, they would obviously be biased, but I suppose
if a person really can fit it into their schedule, I see no problem with somebody being like a state representative and a pastor at the same time, for example. As long
would
as
you say that for anybody else that's working?
What do you mean anyone else that's working? Are you talking about like political positions, or are you talking about in general?
No, political positions. Anybody that does House, Commons, or anything that does Senate, do you think that they have an actual separate job where they're working, let's say, I don't know, in Starbucks or anything else like that? Or do you think that they're doing speeches that only just get a little bit of money?
I don't know how well they would fit into a schedule, but I don't know, unless somebody can like really make the case to me as to how it's against the Constitution or ethics or anything like that, I don't see any real problem with it. I mean, I don't know for certain and how sure that Donald Trump is actually doing this, but supposedly he said that he wasn't going to accept a presidential salary, and he was still going to accept his CEO salary of his own company.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I don't have a problem with somebody doing that. That's completely and utterly up to them on what they're going to get paid for and whatnot. Especially if you're a CEO, you don't actually technically have to do any of the work. You're just receiving a check. But if you're going to be, I suppose there is a lot of work there, but ticking off paperwork and so on and so forth. It's not the same as anyway. The point that I was making about the past there.
The biggest thing is, as long as they do not make any laws coercing people into religion or into following a religion.
Yes,
that's the main thing. But if even some people are not like full-time pastors, or sometimes part-time pastors, a special occasional guest for being a pastor or whatnot. I mean,
can I ask you a question?
That as well. What?
I was going to say, can I ask you a question? Do you think that the pastor themselves, if they were elected to say, I don't know, Senate, do you think that they would have any special interest in looking after their own church, for instance?
They plausibly could, but are you talking about if they actually do, I don't know, give earmarks or special subsidies to their own church through their own political job?
Yes.
I mean, I don't think that should be allowed. I think that I think if they want to take their own government salary and use that to fund their own church, well, then I don't see any issue with that. But outside of their own, say, Senate salary, no, I would disagree with the idea of subsidizing a church. And I think that his proposal of doing such a thing should be struck down by the rest of the senators in the Senate House. Let's say, for example.
Sure. I mean, you guys are probably going to know much better than I am, obviously being from the UK, but I'm pretty sure, though not 100% sure, that there are certain special interest laws that prohibit you from actually being a congressman or a senator.
Congress?
Not really.
No? Okay. My mistake. As I said, I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, there are scant few things that actually prohibit you from holding public office.
Yeah, it's just mostly the same people just continue to do it over and over again.
Yeah.
Which I think is a problem of not, I mean, we all say to every little kid you can become the president, but we don't actually make it really necessarily easy. We don't give them an avenue to perhaps pursue that. People do, go into politics if it's absolutely their dream, but it just seems like most people who actually do have the ability to run and stuff like that just don't even try because they don't feel it's worth the effort, when it really could be more I think that they should, which in my opinion would be more would be better, to make it more open and available to everybody to do whatever they wanted to do, which includes
it is quite open. It's just a case of, as you said, people don't have the gumption, which goes back to the previous conversation that we were having again about the gumption of people to do stuff. The equality is still there for people to go and do it. If they want to do it, they can. And that's the same in my country as it is in yours.
I feel like it's actually just not, people don't actually realize how easy it is, probably, I think.
Well, look, it's not easy, right? So there's a hell of a competition there. And people are dicks. I mean, the October surprise doesn't exist for no reason, right? And so if you're not willing to put up with that, then you don't go into politics, and it's pretty much that simple.
Yeah, I do feel like though, I mean, the problem is it's mostly lawyers and people who've been in it forever, which is perhaps just the natural result of it. But I mean, also there are other voting methods besides what is it, the majority rules. They have the perhaps the multiple. I forget what it's called, but the one where you rank people based on how likely. Yeah, the one where you not. I think the one we have is called first past the post or something.
So what you're talking about is ranked choice voting.
I believe so. Yeah.
That is not going to alleviate that problem for a number of reasons that there is no way I have time to explain.
Fair enough. I mean, I still feel like, well, whatever. I think I think I need to get going soon.
I definitely do. I'm setting up another stream right now.
Yeah.
All right. So you two can leave. Thank you for coming on. But I want to ask Commonsense Guy, I think maybe just one more question or something. Yeah, one more question.
Sure. I'm free for a little bit.
But yeah, ahead of time, thank you, Don the Pleb and Smiley for joining on and giving us a passionate discussion. But
yeah, we'll see you around.
Yeah, we'll be around, I'm sure. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you later, guys. Cheers.
So, Commonsense Guy, the original topic of this stream was talking about Sarah Reese Jones. I do not know if you had seen the tweet that was shared a whole lot earlier in the SFD Twitter chat, but it was shared by Metal Minister, and basically she was bitching about how there was a CEO of a pillow company called Mike Lindell that was supposedly promoting religion. Well, actually, no, he more or less was promoting religion in the fact that he thinks that more people should be Christians. And he thanks God for the fact that Trump is in office. And supposedly she's saying that this goes against church and state. But what do you think?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And at the same time, even if it did technically go against some amendment, I think that amendment should be repealed.
No, it doesn't at all. It doesn't at all. If someone's been
we talked. Yeah, we talked about it. I mean, Angle v. Vitale was the supposed ruling that she had pulled up out of her ass, and Don the Pleb kind of immediately struck that down. It kind of struck that down. Man, I'm losing my train of thought.
Well, would I be able to elaborate on why I think that it's not?
Sorry,
would I be able to elaborate on why I think it's not anyway?
I think I pretty much know the reason. It's because it's a ruling that is more specific towards public school employees, correct?
No. I meant why I think, not why the ruling was ruled out. Why Don got rid of the ruling, so to speak, as in moving it out of the way. The point that I was going to elaborate on why it's not anyway, regardless of what other people have been talking about, is because if I was to give an opinion as a sitting congressman or officer or political person, then that's me giving an opinion. That's not me setting down into legislation, church into state. That's me giving an opinion on my personal experiences of how I think. That's not
exactly
throwing into church into state. There's still separation. I can still be impartial or impartial enough when it comes to the point of giving my political point of view without actually getting rid of my personal point of views or my personal beliefs.
Yeah, and I mean, I completely agree. There's nothing unethical or even against the Constitution for people to be even in a public sector area during a publicly held speech, that being a quick minute or so about during a press conference or whatever the heck this actually was, saying, oh, thank God for the fact that Trump is president and more people ought to be Christians, get back into their Bibles. There's nothing really against that, because ultimately everybody wants everyone else to be more like them as far as beliefs go, both religious and political and otherwise,
I mean, it sounds to me like people are just annoyed or have a egg up their arse, so to speak, because they are thinking that, oh, he's given an opinion about more people becoming Christian. Could we honestly say, or should we say, can they honestly say, if he was to say, oh, more people should be Muslim and more people should be reading the Quran. Now, it doesn't matter. I'm picking on them for a specific reason, not because I have a distrust or dislike for them, but because it's protected in their own way. Or Jewish people, the Torah and so on and so forth. Would they be kicking off as much fuss, or is it because of their prejudice towards Christians? Because that's what the real question is, isn't it? Is it their prejudice towards Christians that makes them think about it being separated? Or is it a case of it actually being a separate case?
I suppose that there's like that select few who will not give any less of a shit if it was a Muslim saying, thank Allah that Obama was president or something, and more people should be Muslims or whatever. But even for those that are more consistent and think that nobody should speaking in regards of Allah or Jehovah up on a public presidential podium, it's still very disagreeable to me because it's not unethical for them to speak out in that regard. Even the Islamists saying, thank Allah. Or if there's like, weirdly enough, some reformed Muslim man who's all like, thank Allah that Trump is president, as very unlikely that example might be, but still.
Sure. I mean, I suppose, obviously, this is all hypothetical questions because there's nobody really here to answer for it, apart from you being devil's advocate, obviously. But it's the problem of fact of somebody saying, thank God, because I'm pretty sure that in almost every I'm not going to pronounce the word wrong because of it being late-ish where I am. It's not organization, but auguration. There we go.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that you have to swear over the Bible and everything else like that, or whatever religious text or constitution text that is supposed to be there, and depending on what religion you are.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that mean that they shouldn't be doing that? Because that, obviously, if they're swearing over a Bible, that's not separation of church and state. If church and state separation is just a case of saying, in God we trust.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is something that wasn't mentioned as much. You said it, in God we trust. So that makes me think of the fact that on the dollar bill, we have them saying, we had the saying, in God we trust. Here, let me see if I can like spot it out.
It's on the $100 bill. It's on most of them. I've seen it.
Pull out a good old $1 bill. Oh yeah, it's right there. So turn on my cam just to. Yeah. We did not talk about as much if that is an issue to anybody and as to why. And I kind of feel bad of the fact that we did not do as much of that. Ultimately, it is not that big of an issue, but I mean, even the term God is kind of like a neutral term almost, because really, if we want to get super pedantic, God is just the English way of saying Allah, and Allah is just the Arab way of saying God. So yeah, therefore, if you did want to get technical, a Muslim could almost think God as in, Allah or whatever.
I mean, the real question to this is, are people annoyed that somebody gave their personal opinion and they have misconstrued that to being
that's the main issue.
A point of religion coming into state? Because me giving a personal opinion on something, regardless of what it is, isn't a fact of me bringing that into state legislation, which is the point of separation of church and state.
Yeah, Mike Lindell wasn't even advocating for any authoritarian policy to force people to be Christians or to be praying or get into their Bibles more or whatnot. He was just saying some rather milquetoast talking points. And the reason why this became an issue is because in the SFD chat, one of the anonymous guests, as I'm going to continually mention him as, said that there should be like some special amendment to prevent that kind of stuff. Apparently, they think that it's too much of a waste of time for a person to, like, during a public speech, be saying, I believe in God, and I think more people should believe in God, and I thank God that Trump is in office. Apparently, that's too much of a waste of time or whatever to be allowed in their eyes.
Thank Abraham Lincoln that all Republicans are absolutely amazing and everything else like that. I mean, it's exactly the same thing. Yes, I know that Republicans is a political ideology, but it's the same thing. The words are still a point of saying thank you for being who you are. Not unless we're now just being prejudiced towards Christians because of Christians' sake, because that's what it sounds like.
Mm.
And by the way, for people that don't know me, I am as atheist can be.
Mine is going into the sort of anti-theist route, but yeah. I don't think I have really much more to bring up in this conversation. I'm kind of worn out of hosting a live stream that had a very passionate conversation about religion, opening up, then talking about education and economics for a long ass time between Smiles and Dawn. And yeah, I'm ready to like get myself some lunch or something. So anything more you want to add to the conversation or plug in your channel or whatever?
I'm kind of having a conversation with somebody called SJ Thompson on her channel about subjective morality. So if people want to have a listen to that, then come down and go to SJ Thompson's channel. That's exactly how you spell it, SJ Thompson. And yeah, see you on Wednesday.
Yep. All right, and so that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you all for coming, both my fan base and Dawn's fan base alike. Thanks a lot for keeping the chat alive and well, arguing and shit posting and all. And we'll see you all later. And as I will say this, because this is most definitely not a public sector square right here, and so I am fully within my jurisdiction to say this. God bless you all. And have a good night. And stay healthy. Stay safe.